Уважаемые коллеги, русскоговорящие, пожалуйста, оставайтесь в русском канале. То есть русскоговорящие остаются в русском канале и слушают перевод. Англоязычные остаются в англоязычном канале. Я ответила на комментарии в чате, вопрос.
So it's 10 a.m. Here in Italy. We can start. Good morning, dear participants, to this very intense and interesting event on Paris Agreement cooperative approaches, opportunities for Central Asia. Let me open today's works with thanking Carrick for having organized this interesting event in a moment where the world is reflecting on how to concretely implement the Paris Agreement. Article 6 cooperative approaches will be a very important means to achieve sustainable development and global climate change targets. Let me first give the floor to Carrick, to Irina Beckmanson, for some technical remarks about how this meeting will take place. Thank you.
Уважаемые коллеги, добрый день. Наша встреча проводится в онлайн-режиме. Пожалуйста, русскоязычные, русскоговорящие участники, оставайтесь, переключитесь в русский канал. Внизу экрана есть квадратик, там русский, английский, оригинальный язык. Пожалуйста, будьте в русском канале и будете слушать перевод. Англоязычных участников попросим быть в англоязычном, в английском канале. Сегодняшняя встреча проводится в онлайн-режиме. У нас будет по повестке дня идти мероприятие, которое отображено на экране. Также будет предложено сделать общее фото. Модератором сегодняшнего мероприятия является Алессандра Фиданза. Она является международным экспертом по изменению климата и будет вести сегодняшнее мероприятие. Также у нас работает чат, вы можете задавать свои вопросы на любом языке, на русском, на английском. Наши сотрудники будут реагировать на все ваши вопросы и стараться ответить буквально на все вопросы. Если мы не будем успевать ответить на них устно, то мы будем делать это письменно. Ну, по-моему, все умеют пользоваться Zoom, коллеги. Пожалуйста, кто будет говорить, включайте микрофон и включайте свою камеру. Если вы не говорите, отключайте, пожалуйста, эти девайсы, микрофон и камеру. По-моему, я все обозначила. Уважаемая Алессандра, пожалуйста, можем начинать официальную часть нашего мероприятия.
Thank you very much, dear Irina, for these introductory details, which will help participants make the most of this very important event. As you mentioned, we will have a group photo, which will be taken right after the very initial session of the greetings and salutations. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Erbolat Kodzikov, Deputy Head of the Committee for Environmental Regulation and Control of the Ministry of Ecology, Geology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Mr. Kodzikov, the floor is yours.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники сегодняшнего мероприятия. Меня слышно?
Да, слышно, видно, отлично.
И видно, и слышно.
Вас слышно было, пожалуйста, продолжайте.
Mr. Kozikov, you can give your
Спасибо
introductory
большое. Еще
greeting.
раз участник сегодняшнего. Спасибо большое. Да, сегодняшнее мероприятие, посвященное статье 6 Парижского соглашения, хочу поприветствовать от своего имени и разрешить от своего имени, от имени председателя Комитета экологического регулирования Жолдасова Зулхасовича поприветствовать всех присутствующих на сегодняшнем мероприятии. Хотел бы поблагодарить Реца и Александра Фиданза за отличную организацию и теплый прием. На прошедшей в Глазго климатической конференции сторон КОП-26 участники согласовали правила применения статьи 6 Парижского соглашения, которые предусматривают введение конкретных механизмов регулирования выбросов парниковых газов и торговли углеродными единицами, признавая роль многостороннего подхода к решению проблемы изменения климата и поощряя региональное и международное сотрудничество в целях укрепления деятельности по борьбе с изменением климата в контексте устойчивого развития. Как вы знаете, Казахстан одним из первых ратифицировал Парижское соглашение в 2016 году. В рамках реализации данного документа к 2030 году Республика Казахстан намерена сократить выбросы парниковых газов на 15%. Для достижения поставленной цели Казахстан обновил на национальном уровне. Ведется разработка доктрины углеродной нейтральности Казахстана до 2060 года, предусматривающие базовые подходы к низкоуглеродной трансформации экономики и промышленности. Казахстан принимает усилия обеспечения зеленого экономического роста через трансфер технологий, активное внедрение наилучших доступных технологий как основной инструмент предотвращения и контроля загрязнения. Призванные, конечно же, обеспечить высокий уровень защиты окружающей среды и охраны здоровья человека. Перехода отечественной промышленности на регулирование, основанное на технологическом нормировании. И, конечно, лучшая мировая практика по внедрению принципов НДТ отражена в новом экологическом кодексе Республики Казахстан, где с 1 января 2025 года предусмотрен новый переход, то есть новый механизм, переход на предприятия первой категории на комплексные экологические решения. Углеродная нейтральность Казахстана будет достигнута повышением устойчивости землепользования и водопользования, энергетической эффективности экономики, электрификации и широкомасштабное использование экологически чистых, в том числе возобновляемых источников энергии, реализации планов по сокращению парниковых газов будет максимально использован потенциал рыночных механизмов и частных инвестиций. По словам главы государства, президента Республики Казахстан, осуществление таких амбициозных целей потребует значительных средств и инвестиций в модернизацию сектора производства электроэнергии и тепла, поддержки со стороны общества однозначно, пересмотр национальной системы торговли и квотами на выбросы парниковых газов, гармонизации ее соответствующими международными системами. Также хочу отметить важность поддержки развитых стран и международных организаций в части технологического с переходной экономикой для ускорения низкоуглеродной трансформации. Важным элементом в данном вопросе является привлечение климатического финансирования, обмен знаниями и инновациями. Наша страна выражает поддержку климатических инициатив как на уровне страны, так и на уровне региона. Открыто взаимовыгодному и продуманному сотрудничеству. В завершении своего выступления хотел бы пожелать участникам сегодняшнего семинара успешной работы и плодотворных результатов. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kozigo, for your very interesting introductory remarks, which also brought a stress on the importance of taking concrete actions, even with the support of the international community, to work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and for having remarked the important steps that Kazakhstan has already undertaken. So now let me introduce Johannes Beckmanson, who is now connected. Thank you very much, Johannes, for joining us. Johannes is, as you all know, the head of cooperation of the European Union delegation to Kazakhstan, a long-lasting colleague of interesting activities and projects in Central Asia as a region and in individual countries. So the floor is yours, Johannes. We don't have much time for these introductory remarks, but we will take advantage of your presence also during the roundtable. So thank you very much again, Johannes.
Thank you, Alexandra. Yeah, I will watch the clock carefully. But first of all, I would like to thank you and Carrick for this opportunity to say a few words of welcome on behalf of the EU delegation to Kazakhstan. I think there is no need really to stress the significance of the Paris Agreement to this audience, but I would like to use my short speech to draw attention to the EU's multifaceted actions in relation to it. The key messages of my speech is basically, first of all, that the countries of Central Asia have a great potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and move towards carbon neutrality. And they are, in fact, on a good way to make use of this potential already. Secondly, I would like to recognize the importance of the main topic we address at this workshop. I would like to stress that a cooperative approach in accordance with Article 6 of the Paris Agreement offers unique opportunities that can help release the efficiency gains resulting from synergies. The EU provides support to Central Asia to follow this way and is willing and able to continue and even extend this support. Now, allow me to be a little bit more specific and provide some background for today's event. COP26 resulted in the completion of the Paris Agreement rulebook and kept the Paris targets alive, giving us all a chance to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. In other words, after 6 years of negotiations, the UN climate talks in Glasgow produced a strong framework for international cooperation through carbon markets. The agreed Article 6 rules give countries the tools they need for environmental integrity, to avoid double counting, and ultimately to clear a path to get private capital flowing to developing countries as well as developed countries. I would like to commend Carrick for organizing the joint Central Asia Pavilion at COP26, which provided the countries with a platform to demonstrate their investment potential, their role in the global climate process, and their perspectives and current needs for financing, technologies, and expertise. The delegations of Central Asia at COP26 affirmed their willingness to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but at the same time expressed the need for both mutual cooperation within the region and for international cooperation. The Central Asian countries have potential to reduce emissions of carbon dioxide and methane, and to introduce renewable energy, mainly in solar and wind energy. Just to summarize that, so basically all 5 Central Asian countries have a great potential when it comes to renewables. Kazakhstan has a high potential in the switch from coal in electricity and heat generation. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, high potential in switch from coal in heating. And Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, which are gas-based countries, have potential in energy efficiency production and consumption from both electricity and gas. We will have an opportunity to talk more about this in the roundtable session. So I think I will stop here just by saying that we have a multitude of programs supporting our the Paris Agreement agenda, and I will come back to that during the roundtable session. Thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Johannes. You were very concise, but you brought to the attention of the audience very important initiatives that the EU is carrying on, and we have only to thank you and to appreciate your work because you clearly supported very important steps in the region since you arrived in the EU delegation in Kazakhstan. So thank you very much. Now the floor to Zafar Makmudo, Executive Director of Carrick. Dear Zafar, we don't have much time. I'm sure that you will be able to be even more concise than usual.
Well, thank you, Alessandra. I will try to be short, and I will also speak then in English to be again succinct and to fit into the given time. Dear participants of today's event, we gathered to discuss the new possibilities under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, the global agreement that invites all the parties to unite forces in cutting carbon emissions. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all our esteemed speakers today, to the representatives from the national governments of the Central Asian countries, who put enormous efforts to transforming into the green development, to the international and also to the international financial institutions and development partners who are here with us today, who are providing all the possible support to the national governments with the transformation and achieving their carbon neutrality plans and strategies. And of course, to the international specialists who will be presenting us the new possibilities and mechanisms of cooperation in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. I would also like to say a special thanks to our moderator, Alessandra Fidanza, the international climate change consultant, who has kindly accepted our invitation to help Central Asian region to be at the forefront of decarbonization activities. The Central Asian countries were somewhat beyond the global attention in their efforts in tackling climate change issues. Using this opportunity made available for us, we would like to use this Article 6 of the Paris Agreement we are ready to stand pioneers for cooperation and move our economies from gray to green. We present a handful of countries with vast potential for cooperation, starting from the afforestation efforts in the deserts of the Aral Sea up to saving the glaciers high up in the Pamir Alai Mountains, from introducing new technologies in the mining sector to utilizing drip irrigation to save water and renewable energy system to produce energy. Today, there is no need to highlight about the vulnerability of Central Asian countries to climate change, with negative impacts on melting glaciers and shrinking water resources, on which the agriculture, energy, industrial sectors, and other sectors depend. This is the challenge the entire world is facing, and we are here to demonstrate our readiness to deal with these challenges. Dear participants, thank you very much for taking time and participating in this effort, in this meeting, taking your effort and taking your time. I would like to greet you all once again and looking forward to see the opening up new opportunities for cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zafar. Your words were very inspiring because you touched several concrete topics that could be the object of future cooperation activities. Before leaving the floor to Irina Bekmirzaeva, I would like to ask all participants to this meeting to switch on their cameras because Carrick will take a group photo. So please switch your cameras on and smile. I see there are still participants who are not visible. Hairdresser, makeup. So are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Carrick, you can go. Done? Once again, smile. Last time. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that Carrick finalized the pictures. So for 5 minutes only, because we don't have much time, I have to say that I accepted to support Carrick in preparing this very important event, because it is of my high professional personal interest. And initially, we didn't foresee so many speakers. We are very happy that we were successful in securing the speaking of so many important speakers from relevant institutions dealing with Central Asia. So for 5 minutes only, Irina, you have to tell us about what net zero ambitions might mean for Central Asia. The floor is yours.
Уважаемая госпожа Фиданза, уважаемые дамы и господа, разрешите поприветствовать вас на сегодняшнем важном мероприятии для региона Центральной Азии. В своей презентации я расскажу вам о содействии РЭЦа с уровня выбросов. Пожалуйста, следующий слайд. Как известно, долгосрочной целью Парижского соглашения является достижение чистого нулевого уровня выбросов до 2050 года. И позвольте обратить ваше внимание на текущее положение дел с определяемыми на национальном уровне вкладами в странах Центральной Азии, которые являются ключевым механизмом для достижения целей Парижского соглашения. Как вы видите на слайде, вот Казахстан намеревается достичь сокращения выбросов парниковых газов на 15–25% к 2030 году. И в этой связи в стране ведется разработка доктрины углеродной нейтральности до 2060 года. Кыргызская республика планирует сократить выбросы парниковых газов на 16,63% к 2025 году и на 15,97% к 2030 году. В Таджикистане к 2030 году выброс парниковых газов не должен превышать 60–70% от уровня 1990 года. Туркменистан в своем АНУФ выразил приверженность ограничению выбросов парниковых газов. Узбекистан намерен снизить удельные выбросы парниковых газов на единицу внутреннего валового продукта ВВП на 35% к 2030 году. В этой связи в стране утверждена национальная стратегия по переходу к зеленой экономике до 2030 года, а также ведется разработка национальной климатической стратегии. Уважаемые коллеги, как вы видите, у всех стран идут разные количественные обязательства, разные подходы, разные методы к снижению выбросов парниковых газов, но цель одна – это ограничение и снижение выбросов парниковых газов. На правой стороне слайда вы можете видеть список возможных решений по снижению выбросов, которые страны Центральной Азии могли бы взять на вооружение. Это такие, как чистая энергия и эффективность, поэтапный отказ от угольных электростанций, остановка вырубки лесов и восстановление деградированных земель, ресурсосберегающее ведение сельского хозяйства, использование меньшего количества воды, переход на электромобили, увеличение общественного транспорта, езда на велосипеде и условия для пешеходов, ходьбы, модернизация и обезуглероживание зданий и таких отраслей экономики, как авиация и судоходство, а также при производстве такой продукции, как цемент, сталь и пластик. Сокращение потери и порчи продуктов питания, употребление меньшего количества мяса и большего растений. В данном контексте в рамках своего мандата РЭЦ оказывает содействие странам Центральной Азии с тем, чтобы страны региона успешно обменивались знаниями, опытом, заимствовали и внедряли инновационные климатические политики. Что же делает РЭЦ в настоящий момент в данном направлении? Приведу несколько примеров. Вот одним из недавних событий является то, что во время 26-й конференции сторон рамочной конвенции об изменении климата в Глазго в ноябре 2021 года было подписано соглашение между инициативой по прозрачности климатических действий ICAT и РЭЦа о реализации проекта по созданию систем транспарентности климатических действий и отчетности по Парижскому соглашению. Данный проект охватывает все 5 стран Центральной Азии, и период реализации составляет 2021-2024 годы. Следующий слайд. Одним из значимых итогов деятельности РЭЦа является создание Центральноазиатской климатической информационной платформы, которая позволяет всем заинтересованным сторонам получать доступ к информации в области изменения климата на региональном и национальном уровнях. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Еще одна важная региональная платформа для обмена знаниями и опытом в регионе Центральной Азии – это ежегодная региональная конференция по вопросам изменения климата. С 2016 года уже проведено 4 таких региональных конференций, насчитывающих от 200 до 400 участников на каждой конференции. И в июне этого года, предположительно, в Республике Таджикистан, в городе Душанбе, в гибридном формате будет проведена 5-я Центральноазиатская конференция с фокусом на вопросы устойчивого зеленого роста в условиях меняющегося климата. И буду уже заканчивать. Еще одна наша немаловажная диалоговая площадка. Это площадка представителей Министерства иностранных дел и парламентариев стран Центральной Азии. На данной площадке обсуждаются вопросы совершенствования законодательства, политики стран в области изменения климата. Обсуждаются такие вопросы, как разработка экологического кодекса, обмен мнениями, а также данная площадка позволяет на политическом уровне усиливать региональный диалог по выполнению Парижского соглашения и процессу подготовки стран Центральной Азии к конференциям сторон рамочной конвенции ООН об изменении климата. Чуть позже по повестке дня вам будет предоставлена отдельная информация по первому павильону Центральной Азии в Глазго, который состоялся в прошлом году, и планы по скоординированному участию региона Центральной Азии на конференции сторон 27 в ноябре этого года в Египте. Благодарю за внимание.
Excuse me to interrupt you, but we are running out of time, so I have to interrupt you because we will have another presentation at the end of the day on the Centration preparation for COP27 by your colleague Zafar. So I'm very sorry to interrupt you. Thank you. So I will be very strict and bear with me if I will have to interrupt speakers. You will see, you already saw the timer appearing on the screen, and the speakers, you have only the assigned time, otherwise we cannot deal with this tight schedule. So let me introduce our keynote speaker, who is Luis Robles Olmos from Delta Increase EIG Lichen Carbon, who has kindly accepted to provide us a keynote speech on what Article 6 cooperative approaches mean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. First of all, thank you very much to Carrick for this invitation. It's my pleasure to share these ideas and approach to Article 6 with you all. Good morning from Madrid, where I am placed, Madrid, Spain, and good afternoon to all of you in the Central Asia countries. Next one, please. The intention of this presentation is that has been prepared by Delta Increase is to briefly review the contents of cooperative approaches on Article 6 and considering some of the different aspects that are relevant for the implementation. Next one, please. But first of all, let me make an introduction of the Lenta increase and myself. My name is Luis Robles Olmos, as Alessandra said. I am based quite near Madrid in Spain, and my university background is a Master of Science in Agronomic Engineering. Part of my professional career has been focused in water management, energy, air pollutions, and let's say that since 1999, I am 100% involved in the climate change challenge, focused principally on mitigation projects and MRP systems. Regarding data increase is an European economic interest group that is composed by a group of companies and professionals that are jointly offering their services and their knowledge. And we provide technical services in areas as climate change, sustainability, energy transition, waste management, circular economy, and the multilateral cooperation schemes. This is our scope. Next one, please. So going to the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, the outcome of Glasgow has been sometimes criticized, but we have to consider if the whole outcome is a bottle half full or half empty. But considering Article 6, we have to consider, in my opinion, that the bottle is more than half full. Article 6 has been one of the pending issues to call and to close what is called the Paris Rulebook in the past COP25 COP that was celebrated in Madrid under the presidency of Chile in December 2019. It was not possible to close the gaps of the Article 6, mainly because of the use of the protocol mechanisms and the need of the corresponding adjustment that we will talk about a little bit later. But COP26 has finally reached the construction, the building, the rules for the whole Article 6, for the implementation of that cooperative approaches based both in market mechanisms and as well in not market mechanisms. And one of the key lessons learned and maybe messages that we have to consider from the past is the role of, in my opinion, of the multilateral cooperation entities. These multilateral cooperation entities have a key role. They are the cornerstone in the process of implementing the NDCs of the countries, especially in the complexity and multiple tracks that the Paris agreements offer to the international community. Next one, please. So first of all, we have the Article 6.2, that is let's say, the regulation of international carbon markets. Article 6.2 establishes the rules for governments to participate in international trade, international interchange, of what is called ITMO. ITMO means the International Transfer of Mitigation Outcomes. It means that the actions that are done in the countries to mitigate, to decrease greenhouse gas emissions, once the effort is over the compromises, the commitments of the NDC, it could be transferred to another party that have more technical difficulties or more technical, higher economical effort to create that, obtain that mitigation, or just as a consequence of a cooperation agreement. So the outcome of COP26 is the guidance on cooperative approaches referred to Article 6.2. Is that document have the rules for accounting and reporting schemes. They establish as well how to record for the ITMO transfer, how to reflect that transfer of mitigation outcomes in the different NDCs. This guidance established the need to establish or to apply corresponding adjustments. It means that if one quantity of tons are transferred from one country to another, the country that is transferring that mitigation outcomes, that emission reductions, must add that quantity of emissions as an emission in their inventory, because they cannot be a system with a double quantity in emission reductions. So the system must ensure a net zero gain. We cannot account twice or more than twice for the same emissions reduction unit. There is something relevant that is, for example, that accounting and trading of ITMOs of results that are not related specific with greenhouse gas emissions. For example, one country can develop a higher quantity of emission of renewable energy than another, and then jointly they can reach a common objective. It is allowed under Article 6.2, but the mitigation impact of the activities must be reported. There is special provisions to the transfer of Article 6.4 that we are going to see in the next slide to be considered an ITMO under 6.2, but there is the need of a specific authorization of the host country, and as well, obviously, the need of the corresponding adjustment. And we have to highlight that these ITMOs from Article 6.2 are not subject or overall mitigation actions or share of profits. Next one, please. Regarding the Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement, it is the article that reflects the new Sustainable Development Mechanism, that is the substitution of the CDM in the Kyoto Protocol. There are the rules of how these mechanisms are going to be run under the governance of the supervisory body and the support of the UNFCCC Secretariat. So it is going to follow the same rule more or less as the CDM, but there are some specific provisions, as for example, the need to make that corresponding adjustment that I mentioned before, the funding of the adaptation funds, 5% fee in the carbon credit transactions are going to be used to finance the adaptation fund. And as well, there is a discount in the 2% of the carbon credits that each project are going to reach to get this overall mitigation outcome. Please, next one. Finally, Article 6.8 means the possibility to cooperate without this transfer of mitigation outcomes. 6.8 is mainly related with the fact of this not market approach to support, for example, actions that will deliver mitigations in the long term, or in sectors of the economy or activities where the MRV systems are difficult to be implemented. And of course, the adaptation and commitments will be supported by means of this bilateral no-market approach between countries, or as well under a multilateral framework. Next one, please. The starting point for the Central Asian countries obviously are going to be the actual NDCs, the NDCs that are in force. The NDCs of the 5 countries are obviously different because they have to be reflecting the realities and policies in each country. But there are common aspects such as the NDCs expiring in 2030, and as well in all the NDCs of the 5 countries, there are targets for increasing energy efficiency indicators. As well, there is a common target, the increasing of the renewable energy, and there are adaptation commitments identified in sectors such as agriculture, land use, water, energy, and transport. So with this common framework, we can see that there are, let's say, the basis of a cooperation considering this common interest as well with the other interest in mitigation results among the 5 countries. Next one, please. I've been asked to identify challenges and barriers, and the first thing is what countries have to do to implement a net zero emissions commitment. Well, we have to consider that the Paris Agreement envisaged a net zero target that will be reached in the second half of this century. Many of the countries, for example, the European Union, but not only, have identified 2050 as the year to have this equilibrium, this net zero goal. That means that the quantity of emissions are going to be equal to the quantity of net absorptions from nature solutions. To achieve this goal, a pathway based on a national strategy is obviously needed. There are multiple ways to realize that pathway, and what is shown in this slide is only one of those that are possible, but obviously not the only one. I've considered that the identification of sector needs and opportunities is a must. The quantification of the actual available resources and gaps are as well a need to be done. And then with the identification of the finance opportunities are going to be the basis for that national strategy. That must consider a time frame for implementation with intermediate commissions and link that net zero commitment, that national strategy with the general country economic policies and development policies, obviously, and must be communicated in an update national determined contribution. Next one, please. How to size the opportunities, how to move on these opportunities that the approach of the Article 6 provides to the countries. If we consider the mitigation outcomes transferred, the international community and the thanks state the needs that the ITMOs must be from a high quality and transparency. So ITMOs are asked to be real of high quality and transparent based systems. So in this case, if we consider the quality of the ITMO, of the mitigation outcomes to be transferred from one country to another, the quality is related to the concept of environmental integrity, based on the fact that the implementation of a mitigation measure cannot result in an increase of global emissions. And as well, that mitigation outcome must be the result of a decreasing baseline in the country when the mitigation outcome is created. And in the country when from the one that mitigation outcome is transferred to another one. Next one, please. Talking about transparency, the robust transparency frameworks are necessary to get the integration of stakeholders of the private sector, and as well of to get the finance from national or international sources. As mentioned before, it is going to improve, and it's going to be a requirement to mobilize the climate finance, gives the floor for the private sector action that is absolutely necessary to achieve the commitments of the NDCs and the global commitment of climate change, and link the climate change national contributions with the country development priorities. For that are needed very strong but friendly methodologies and practical tools. This robust transparent system within the country are going to be reflected and are going to be support these cooperative approaches. We have two main tools that are the NIRS, the National Inventory Reports, and the biannual updated reports, what is called the PRORs. These are elements of the convention and elements of the Paris Agreement, and they are obviously the key elements, but not the only ones to substantiate transparency at country level. But I don't want to take more time from this because some other speakers are going to treat this and to consider this in detail. Next one, please. As well, if we consider proposals for actions and successful initiatives that could be highlighted. The thing is that there are many schemes, there are many examples coming from the beginning of the action of the Kyoto Protocol, but not only inside the Kyoto Protocol. Paris Agreement as well have some developments right now, but we can talk maybe about several examples that are, in my opinion, good ideas to follow in the context of the Central Asia region. For example, national schemes, as the one that we have here in my country, in Spain, what they are called the Spanish climate projects, that are mitigation projects that are approved by the government and are developed in non-UETS sectors, so mainly in transport, in agriculture, in the domestic sector, etc. And they are going to deliver emission reductions during a short rating period, only 4 years, but that emission reductions are paid by the government, are paid by the government. The renewables, the explosion of the renewable energy connected to national grids in Latin America as well is under my consideration, under my idea, a good example to follow. Talking about cities, talking about emission reductions in cities connected with some other co-benefits. For me, a good example is the creation of bus rapid transit systems, what is called the BRTs, that are a specific channel for buses that are segregated for the general circulation and are connected with metro systems and railways that creates a much better and friendly municipal and common transport systems, and as well provide a good result in not only in greenhouse emissions, but in the reduction of other atmospheric pollutants. And finally, something that is really new is the use of extreme emission reductions in the oil and gas industry for the compliance of the European Union Fuel Quality Directive. So, and they are a good example of how to increase the number of flare avoidance projects in the oil and gas sector. Last one, please. And then last but not least, it's worth noting the opportunity presented by the cooperative approaches of the Paris Agreement for a region like the Central Asia region. In this context, all countries as a region or individually can benefit, in my opinion, from the Paris Agreement opportunities by means of a common framework in the region. Steps to build up a robust common framework in Central Asia are shown here. As well, it is my personal opinion, but to establish a common dialogue among the countries, focusing on the priorities, supporting the scout for finding countries or dialogue with countries that will like to invest, and matching the demand and the offer, identifying the needs of capacity building both at regional and national level, developing national strategies for the net zero achievement, and to establish a common communication policy to reinforce the idea of the Central Asia region as a climate hub. These are the opportunities that the Paris Agreement are showing, are providing, in the idea of this Central Asia 5-1-1 idea, 5 countries, 1 region, 1 voice, that could serve of a common position for next COP27. So I'm going to finalize here. I think that I am just on time, and thank you very much, Raushan, for your help, and thank you very much for you all for your attention. I'm open to resolve any of the communication that you will have later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luis, for your being also on time. You at the end you mentioned the Central Asia 511 slogan, which was the slogan of the pavilion of Central Asia at COP26. I posted in the chat the link to an article which appeared today on the IISD newsletter, which talks about the great opportunity that Central Asia had at COP26 with a very interesting pavilion. So let's move forward. Please post your questions into the chat, and during the Q&A, Irina will read them, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Others might be addressed at a later stage. So now let's open the session dedicated to framework and contents for future cooperation activities in Central Asia. And we heard about the importance of transparency frameworks for setting up any future cooperation activities in Central Asia and all over the world. And let me introduce Oleg Buliani, Senior Program Manager of ICAT, who will provide the first of the two interventions foreseen from ICAT today on climate action transparency in Central Asia, Regional Transparency Hub. You have 6 minutes, no more than that. You will be cut after 6 minutes. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Oleg.
Thank you, Alessandra. Доброе утро, добрый день, дамы и господа. Прежде всего, хотел бы поблагодарить организаторов за предоставленную возможность поучаствовать в круглом столе и презентовать работу партнерства ICAT. Я не вижу со своей стороны
перевод.
презентация на экране или нет?
Not yet.
Can we stop the timer, please?
Who has the presentation of Oleg? Are you presenting yourself or is Carrick presenting?
Carrick is presenting.
So Carrick, please share his presentation. Thank you. Go ahead with the timer, deduct this second.
Спасибо. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Я бы хотел, пока налаживаются технические детали презентации, я бы хотел сказать несколько слов об ICAT.
Перевод на русский язык не слышен.
Хотел сказать несколько слов о том, какую работу мы недавно начали в странах Средней Азии и насколько эта работа может быть актуальна в контексте статьи 6 Парижского соглашения. Можно переключить слайды?
Carrick, please, could you advance the slides as requested by Oleg? Otherwise, we won't move. Please advance to the next slides. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just a couple of seconds.
We don't have so many seconds, Roshan, so please move.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, we see your screen, but it's still on the first slide of the presentation, and Oleg already moved on.
Okay.
Oleg, could you please continue talking while Carrick is trying to solve the technical issues? So don't stop, otherwise there won't be time enough. Thank you.
Окей. Тогда я расскажу в двух словах о том, что такое ICAT. Это партнерство, которое было создано в 2015 году при участии доноров и технических партнеров, которые помогают реализовывать программы технической помощи в странах-участницах. Управление партнерством осуществляет UN Office for Project Services. И секретариат ICAT располагается в Бонне, Германия, при поддержке секретариата UNFCCC. Основная цель нашей работы – это помощь правительствам стран в разработке и внедрении институциональных механизмов выполнения, мониторинга и отчетности климатических программ и мероприятий. И это может включать в себя все, что связано с работой по статье 6 на национальном уровне. На сегодняшний день мы ведем проекты в более чем 50 странах мира, и в том числе оказываем поддержку 40 странам через программы прямой технической помощи и 16 странам через региональные центры. На каких элементах базируется наша работа? Во-первых, это может быть программа технической помощи, которая разработана индивидуально с учетом приоритетов страны. Например, это может быть разработка процедур сбора данных, электронная система мониторинга выполнения NDC в целом или в контексте статьи 6. Во-вторых, мы предлагаем набор методологий и различных инструментов для построения и моделирования сценариев развития сектора в экономике. Также мы предлагаем платформу по обмену опытом и информацией между странами-участниц наших проектов. Я, наверное, в целях экономии пропущу несколько слайдов. Несколько слов о нашей работе в странах Средней Азии. Как Ирина сказала в начале, в ноябре 2021 года было подписано соглашение между ICAT и Carrick. Это соглашение предусматривает создание регионального центра по транспарентности климатических мероприятий. Техническим партнером проекта выступает GSDMI, Greenhouse Gas Management Institute. Целью работы центра является наращивание потенциала экспертов в области, в основном, статьи 13 Парижского соглашения, а именно институциональные механизмы мониторинга, отчетности и верификации программ, связанных с изменением климата. И это также включает мероприятия, связанные со статьей 6. И техническая поддержка странам Средней Азии. Какие мероприятия предварительно мы рассматриваем в рамках работы этого центра? Во-первых, это оценка потребностей и приоритетов стран и выработка детального рабочего плана на последующие 3 года. Во-вторых, это проведение разнообразных тренингов и семинаров, которые позволят обмениваться опытом экспертов из стран региона. В-третьих, это может быть программа технической поддержки, в рамках которой возможна разработка различных моделей и инструментов, включая все мероприятия, связанные со статьей 6. Ну и, наконец, административная поддержка работы центра. Весь проект рассчитан на 3 года, также с перспективой, что после того, как предварительная работа будет сделана, центр сможет продолжить эту работу независимо от ICAT. Какие возможности региональный центр может предоставить странам Средней Азии в контексте работы над статьей 6 Парижского соглашения? Во-первых, я бы хотел сказать, что взаимосвязь мероприятий статьи 6 с другими механизмами Парижского соглашения стала намного сложнее и комплекснее, если сравнивать с рыночными механизмами Киотского протокола, такими как механизм чистого развития или проекты совместного осуществления. В первую очередь это включает в себя такой новый элемент, как применение соответствующих корректировок в углеродный бюджет страны, страны продавца и страны покупателя. Для выполнения этих требований необходима значительная подготовительная работа внутри стран. И эта работа может включать в себя, например, анализ национального законодательства в области изменения климата, экономический анализ граничной стоимости сокращения выбросов для определения приоритетных секторов экономики.
Thank you very much, Oleg. Your time is over. Sorry. Thank you. I'm very sorry for the problem with the slides, but the slides were provided into the chat. So be ready also to answer questions that might arise from the audience. Let me pass the floor to a colleague and a friend, Thomas Marques, who will speak about opportunities of applying nature-based solutions for improved air quality as healthy urban living. So Thomas Marques from Unec, the floor is yours, and you have strictly 6 minutes. If there are problems with your presentation, it will be copied in the chat. Thank you very much. Thomas? So maybe there is a problem with Thomas, who is not connecting. So let me pass the floor to another colleague and another friend from the UNECE, Antoine Nunes, who will provide a 6-minute presentation on the recommendations of the UNECE environmental performance reviews in Central Asia. The floor is yours, Antoine.
Hello, good morning. I will do, is okay? You see the
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. I will try to be fast in order to give more time. So the EPR is in short environmental performance review, and it's a program that is handled by the UNECE. I will not go too far in these slides, but the most important thing is that it's a voluntary exercise, and this is under the country. And the recommendation that can be used also for addressing climate change can be used also through this EPR tool. So I give you quickly and to see where we are in Central Asia. As you can see, the violet countries are the countries who are already in the third cycle. Kyrgyzstan will be done by May, and then it will be reviewed in September. And Turkmenistan is still in the first cycle. Then you will see in green are the countries who are still in the second review. Armenia will go next month. What is very important in the EPR is the what we call the peer review or expert review. So everything starts when we go on mission to we do the review mission in the country, and during this review mission, the international expert and the national expert have the possibility to discuss and also to maybe to learn from each other. Then once the draft are done and written, there is an EPR expert group where during this EPR expert group, there is a delegation, and also the EPR expert group is mandated by the Committee on Environmental Policy, and we are doing also the reviewing the recommendations. And finally, the most important is the peer review. The peer review is on the Committee on Environmental Policy within the UNECE, and during this peer review, the country has another chance to discuss and to bring more information regarding environmental situation, but we go beyond the environment because we go on climate change, on SDGs, green economy, and we will introduce circular economy for the fourth cycle. In order to monitor the implementation of the recommendation, and we have, as of today, a rate of 64% of recommendation implemented. We have different ways of assessing this. One is the reporting of the implementation from the previous EPR, so it's every 5 to 10 years. We have a project on the UNDP, the United Nations Development Account, who concern mostly the Western Balkans and also Moldova. And we are developing, we did develop a roadmap for North Macedonia and Uzbekistan, who are quite comprehensive. And Tajikistan is currently also developing the roadmap to implement these recommendations. And we are organized thematic workshop, energy transport. And this year, normally we will do climate change because it's also a request from countries in Western countries, actually, Western Balkans. I will not go to detail, but this is really climate change in the EPRs in Central Asia. So it's Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. As I said, Tajikistan had a bit, but I didn't introduce here because it was a bit older. And there will be a chapter on climate change also in Kyrgyzstan that also will be reporting, and we will see what happens this one. Okay, I give time for my friend Thomas. Thank you, and ready for questions.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Compared to last time, you were ahead of schedule. I really appreciate this, and I would like to say to the audience that the recommendations of the EPRs are a very important source of concrete possible project ideas to be developed also through cooperative approaches. Now, let me give the floor to Tomasz, who managed to connect from UNEP. Tomasz will refer on opportunities of applying nature-based solutions for improved urban air quality as healthy urban living. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. I hope you can hear me well. And apologies again for being disconnected right at the point where I should perhaps be starting my presentation. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I understand there is only like 5 minutes and a half left for me, so I'll try to speak as briefly as possible, and I will be speaking quickly. So I hope that the interpreters can pick up. So I'm Thomas Marques. I work at UNEP Europe office based in Geneva, where I'm the focal point for our regional portfolio, regional meaning the pan-European region. The regional portfolios on environmental assessments and data, and on air pollution. And since we are initiating a new project on urban air pollution and nature-based solutions, I had a discussion with Alexandra, who kindly invited me to present from that lens some ideas and some concepts that hopefully will fit also in the broader context of the meeting today in terms of the Article 6. So the short presentation was prepared also with support from my colleague Catherine, who is actually based in the region in UNEP Central Asia office. So next slide, please. So starting perhaps with a definition of what nature-based solutions are as framed by IUCN. So what are we talking here by nature-based solutions, or NBS? We are talking about interventions that protect, manage, or restore natural or modified ecosystems to address societal challenges, while also providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So this is the broader definition. For the sake of context, in terms of the conference today, I briefly list here in this slide some nature-based solutions potentials for climate change mitigation as framed in the joint UNEP and IUCN publication of 2021 with the same title, NBS potentials for climate change mitigation. And these are listed here in terms of potential yearly removals of gigatons of CO2 equivalent. Other UN agencies, for example, the UN Global Compact, has also broadly framed a few years ago already the potentials of nature-based solutions to support 30% of mitigation needed to reach Paris Agreement's targets and goals. Other co-benefits, of course, and these are the ones I will be focusing a little bit more on this presentation, are related to implementation at city level in terms of absorbing CO2, reducing temperatures, notably the heat island effect, reducing air pollution, and providing spaces for cultural and recreational activities. Next slide, please. Now, in terms, you jumped one. You jumped one slide. Yes, now in terms of the Article 6, there are some linkages between nature-based solutions and climate targets under Article 6.2, maybe also in the context of Article 6.4, NBS may be used to create credits, and also NBS can be supported via development and cooperation opportunities. So trying to make here the linkage with Article 6. Next slide, please. Now, let me briefly mention in this, when you move to the next slide, yes, this one, a new project at UNEP and UN Habitat will be starting this year, focusing on 2 Central Asian cities, Bishkek and Dushanbe, and 1 city in the Western Balkans, Serbia. So this is project largely focused on capacity building and training of relevant government institutions for undertaking air pollution and health assessments, healthy urban living assessments, and to integrate nature-based solutions into sustainable urban planning. There is also an air quality monitoring angle in terms of low-cost sensors, which actually, for example, in Bishkek, there is a already a wide network, which of course has its challenges, since it has never been geared up to support policy decisions. These are actually for citizen. These are citizen science initiatives, rather. If you move to the next slide, and knowing that I have 1 minute 48 seconds, in preparation for this project that has not yet been initiated, we worked with the Kyrgyz branch of Carrick to do a first desk study assessment of the potentials for nature-based solutions in Bishkek, and also framing the air quality management and monitoring challenges that we could potentially address when the project is initiated, by bringing together this idea of promoting sustainable urban planning through nature-based solutions with linkages to urban air quality enhancements, and indirect linkages with increasing resilience to COVID-19 health outcomes. In this slide, I mostly list the air pollution angles of that desk assessment. And if you move to the next slide, which perhaps is more relevant, it's basically the broad findings of this desk assessment in terms of nature pollution potentials in Bishkek, of green space opportunities and challenges, and how the status of green spaces has evolved over the last years. If you move to the next slide, the key really, so thinking about going back to the Paris to the Paris Agreement, Article 6, in the context of nature-based solutions, for my last 20 seconds, you will see in this my last two slides an attempt to make these linkages in terms of, for example, 6.4 in terms of investment in carbon sinks and ecosystems, supporting sustainable urban management and sustainable urban planning. And the final, hopefully, next slide in the last second, is in terms of Article 6.8. And unfortunately, the time doesn't allow me to further elaborate on these potential interlinkages, but I hope that through my presentation, I was able to at least contribute with another perspective to the discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tomasz. And indeed, you centered what I asked you and what we discussed prior to this meeting. It is very interesting to understand how many possibilities we can create by putting in place such activities which have so many co-benefits. So let me give the floor to the World Bank. Unfortunately, Paola Agostini, for different time zones reasons, could not attend. So I give the floor to the environmental specialist Nodira Akhmedkojayeva, who has 6 minutes to talk about green growth and climate change. Thank you very much. Nodira, the floor is yours.
Добрый день. Давайте вдохнем и выдохнем. Возьмем небольшую паузу, так сказать, в этой гонке презентаций. Добрый день, уважаемые участники. Приветствую всех из Ташкента, столицы Республики Узбекистан. Меня зовут Нодира Ахмедкоджаева. Я являюсь сотрудником-экологом команды группы Всемирного банка представительства в Ташкенте, в Узбекистане. Сегодня я бы хотела кратко осветить, как группа Всемирного банка работает совместно с правительством Узбекистана и другими международными организациями в продвижении повестки дня по борьбе с изменением климата и переходу к зеленой экономике. Позвольте мне буквально показать несколько слайдов, чтобы иллюстрировать свою речь. Для тех, кто не знаком с работой группы Всемирного банка, группа Всемирного банка – это международная финансовая организация, платформа, объединяющая 189 стран и выделяющая финансовые и технические средства для развития различных секторов экономик в странах. Что касается Центральной Азии, конкретно Узбекистана, Воздействие изменения климата проявляется в регионе уже очень давно и хорошо известно ученым, исследовательским организациям, фермерам, жителям сельских регионов. Что примечательно, что 5 ноября 2021 года в Ташкенте случилось первый раз за всю историю метеонаблюдений масштабная песчано-пылевая буря, то есть которая являлась прямым последствием климатических изменений в регионе, когда аномально сильные порывы ветра подняли в воздух огромные массы засушенных почв с территории Казахстана и Узбекистана. Этим я хочу сказать, что изменение климата буквально постучалось в окна и в легкие политиков, политических элит и всех жителей Узбекистана. Узбекистан об этом знает давно, правительство Узбекистана об этом знает давно, и в настоящий момент как никогда правительство Узбекистана уделяет внимание вопросам перехода к зеленой экономике, вопросам обезуглероживания секторов экономики, как никогда раньше. Всемирный банк и также другие международные организации в настоящий момент мобилизируются, да, чтобы представить единый фронт финансовых и технических услуг для того, чтобы содействовать правительству Узбекистана в данной тематике. Что делается сейчас в конкретный момент? На конференции сторон 26 в Глазго Узбекистан был представлен на самом высоком уровне. Ирина Бекмирзаева уже упомянула, что Узбекистан повысил в 3,5 раза свои национально определяемые вклады. То есть от 10% Узбекистан повысил до 35% свою готовность понизить углеродный, значит, удельные выбросы парниковых газов на единицу ВВП к 2030 году по сравнению с базовым уровнем 2010 года. В 3,5 раза была повышена эта амбиция. В 2019 году Узбекистан принял стратегию перехода к зеленой экономике, где были обозначены основные векторы, основные сектора, и было уделено большое внимание сектору энергетики, который является одним из самых больших секторов, которые выпускают, да, углеродные парниковые газы. Больше 80% выбросов углеродного газа приходится на энергетический сектор. В настоящий момент группа Всемирного банка, а также другие партнеры производят ряд технического содействия и аналитических работ для того, чтобы конкретизировать эту стратегию перехода к зеленой экономике, то есть разработать своего рода дорожную карту, более четкий план по переходу к зеленой экономике. Мы сейчас конкретно работаем над этим документом. То, что еще было сделано за последние 6 месяцев, мы мобилизировали всех основных актеров, которые работают в сфере климата, в сфере охраны природы, и провели серию, состоящую из 11 круглых столов, которые буквально завершились недавно, тоже с помощью наших коллег из РЭЦа. И во время этих круглых столов Министерство экономики и сокращения бедности Узбекистана как никогда раньше выступили, да, можно сказать, лидером, показали себя, что они берут бразды правления в этой сфере и становятся более сильными актерами в этой сфере. В настоящий момент мы работаем именно с ними для того, чтобы собрать новые аналитические данные. Как это, последние несколько секунд, как это соотносится со статьей номер 6, если, конечно, модератор даст мне возможность это обозначить.
No, sorry, thank you very much, Nodira, but we don't have time. Thank you. Your presentation will be shared, and if there are questions, you will have the opportunity to answer.
Хорошо.
We are running out of time, so I would kindly ask Carrick to group the questions that were asked in the chat, and maybe to read the most significant and to pass then to the roundtable and ask the requested speakers to answer those questions in the following question and answer slot, or in writing in the chat. In any case, all the answers will be published in the website. I apologize, but we are really running out of time. So let me open the roundtable. Irina, if you're ready, you can read the questions. Otherwise, we move to the roundtable.
Спасибо, Александр. У нас поступил один вопрос на русском языке. Это от представителя Узгидромета Руслана Шукурова, который является начальником управления по реализации проектов по вопросам гидрометеорологии и изменению климата. Руслан, вы здесь? Руслан, вы с нами или вы отключились?
No, Ruslan doesn't have to.
Здравствуйте, я здесь, но,
speak.
к сожалению, там у вас должность моя неправильно указана.
No, we don't have time to ask participants to speak. As agreed, all the questions must be written in the chat, and if there are questions, you read them. If you don't have, for the moment, written questions, then we move to the roundtable and we pass to the following question and answer.
Если позволите, Александра, я озвучу этот вопрос на русском языке. Переводчик переведет на английский, потому что этот вопрос больше адресован международным организациям. То есть вопрос звучит так: запланирована ли работа в области управления электронными отходами? Пожалуйста, представители из АБР, Всемирного банка, Unec, UNDP, международных организаций, если можете, напишите на английском языке, ведется ли у вас какая-то работа в области управления отходами в странах Центральной Азии, в том числе в Узбекистане. Спасибо. Пока что был один вопрос, Александра, остальные идут комментарии по поводу очень информативных, содержательных презентаций, и презентации очень интересные, и все их скачивают. Но я хочу сделать объявление, что они будут все закачаны на сайте РЭЦа. Вы можете их потом спокойно скачать и на русском, и на английском языке. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, and apologies for rushing, but for the sake of time and also because the speakers of the roundtable have other engagements, we need to stick to the agreed agenda. We will have time to elaborate more on the questions during the question and answer second slot. Now, let me open the roundtable on opportunities for Central Asia. I held meetings with the speakers who kindly accepted to provide their view in this roundtable, and we are asking them to limit their intervention to 5 minutes. We will be very strict, as you have seen, and we expect them to provide the major points and the highlights to bring to the table relevant suggestions for how to support Central Asia in advancing in future cooperation activities, as well as referring about relevant initiatives that they are already carrying on in the region. So without further ado, let me give the floor to Mr. Dugal, Virender Dugal, Principal Climate Change Specialist, Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department from ADB. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to this very interesting roundtable. Delighted to be here. My name is Virender Dugal, and I lead ADB's work on the carbon market program. We see Article 6 as a component of the broader carbon pricing architecture that can provide incentives for the developing countries, including those in the Carrick region, to meet their NDC ambitions cost effectively and raising the ambition over a period of time. So in that context, we are very delighted that finally the rule book on Article 6 was adopted in the last COP. ADB has always taken a very a holistic approach to support its developing member countries to take advantage of carbon market opportunities. Two streams that we function on one side, we mobilize carbon finance through the trust funds for the benefit of our developing member countries, but at the same time, we provide technical and capacity building support. So in that context, we have established an Article 6 support facility. Way back in 2018, we were among the first ones to take that initiative. And I'm very glad that the facility, which is a $5 million technical assistance, is up and running. And we are already supporting 7 countries in the region. The core of this Article 6 support facility is to support countries in developing the policy architecture, also to strengthen their institutional infrastructure and enhance the capacity building requirements of the policymakers, as well as the various other stakeholders that are required. So in that context, we will be very happy to work together with you, Carrick, and provide any support that would be required by the Carrick countries. Few things that we have done in the recent past to support Carrick is we have collaborated with UNFCCC. We conducted a policy dialogue on the carbon pricing and how carbon pricing could be seen as an important tool to achieve climate policy objectives of the countries. And we are very happy that it was very well attended and contributed to. We would like to carry through that work. ADB does conduct an ADB roundtable on Article 6. This is something which we can offer to Carrick member countries to convene all the policy makers to come together, have a deeper understanding of the various requirements or various features of Article 6 rulebook, and also learn from each other's experience as they move forward, building their policy framework or also developing the institutional infrastructure. We can also collaborate and provide some support on training that we have done with other member countries in the region. We run a very comprehensive training program on carbon pricing that runs from climate policy to carbon pricing to carbon markets and Article 6, something we can do. And finally, we'll be, as a part of our Article 6 support facility, we do help countries to conduct some pilots under Article 6. This is something that we will be very happy to discuss and explore the possibilities if there is sufficient interest and possibilities to support some of the pilots. So on the whole, we'll be very happy to collaborate, to look into the different streams of work that could be initiated to help countries to explore the possibilities of taking advantage of Article 6 mechanisms and how that could be built in the overall policy architecture of the country, so that the Article 6 mechanisms could be considered and actually designed and eventually implemented so that they can contribute toward the broader climate policy objectives of the countries, in specific achieving the targets of the NDCs and raising the ambition over a period of time. My contact details we will be posting in the chat room. We will also be sharing an expanded slide deck for the advantage of all the participants here that will be useful to you. Please feel free to reach out. I should also mention here that ADB and all other multilateral development banks run an MDB working group on Article 6. And that helps us, all the MDBs, to come together and to look at different technical possibilities and contribute to the development of the next generation of international carbon markets. So in that context, we will also be very happy to share the collective knowledge that we have been able to generate, if that is something found useful for the partners here. So with this, I'll stop here. We'll be very happy to answer any questions, either here or later on a bilateral basis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dugal, for your very interesting intervention. Please consider that this very event is organized by the Carrick ECO, so the environmental Carrick. Maybe some some of the activities you were referring are with the other Carrick, the economic Carrick, but nevertheless, the ATP activity with regards to Article 6 are relevant to today's discussion, and thank you very much for bringing your experience to the table. Now the floor to EBRD. To Vincent Duinchover, who is a usual guest speaker of our talks in Central Asia about climate change. He's Associate Director, Lead GAT Country Engagement. The floor is yours, Vincent.
Thank you, Alessandra, and good morning, good afternoon. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to share very briefly our views on this very interesting topic. Maybe to start my brief intervention to mention that the EBRD has been supporting the development of carbon markets in Central Asia for many, many years. So, for example, in Kazakhstan, which, as we know, was the first country in the region to set up an emission trading scheme in 2013, we were involved in supporting this development through our Preparedness for Emission Trading in the EBRD region program. And we are continuing this cooperation at the moment with the Ministry of Environment, Geology and Natural Resources under our EBRD GCF Renewables Energy Program. Under this program, we have an ongoing assignment with the ministry to support sustainable renewable energy markets through the development of MRV systems and practices, supporting the development of domestic offset projects, in particular in the renewable energy sector, and ensuring the integrity of the ETS system that is in place in Kazakhstan. In Uzbekistan, we are currently working with the Ministry of Investment and Foreign Trade on a technical assistance assignment to help them scope out potential carbon market instruments, including Article 6 opportunities. I think it's also important to underline also in the context of this, the cooperation between development partners, to underline that, for example, in Kazakhstan, we're working very closely with our World Bank colleagues that have been working on this topic as well under the PMR and now hopefully PMI program. So I think one thing that I think is important to underline is that we should really coordinate our efforts on this topic as we do on many of the climate agenda topics in the region. Now, maybe a couple of comments to complement some of the very relevant comments that are already made by previous speakers on you know, how to look at this Article 6 development and what are some of the important things to keep in mind. I think previous speakers already spoke about this notion of corresponding adjustments, right? So it's very important to bear in mind that if you want to have an Article 6 transaction, you need to ensure that as a country you make the corresponding adjustment in the NDC, right, to avoid the issue of double counting. So if there is a transaction, you need to ensure that actually the carbon credits that you are selling to another country need to be deducted from your own NDC, right? Otherwise, you have a big issue. And I think maybe the second point that has not really been discussed yet, but I do want to make the point is that it's important that you know, this international trading is also complemented with a domestic carbon price, right? So I think it's also very important that we do not forget that while this Article 6 development is an important one, we feel that countries should really progress on putting in place a domestic carbon price. And of course, we're very interested to support this going forward. Now, maybe some ideas on where we see potential opportunities under the Article 6 various sub-articles. So under Article 6.2, we feel that as EBRD, using our experience in managing our own carbon credit funds, we can help countries set up green investment frameworks that would combine the sale from Article 6 carbon credits, or so-called ITMOs, with EBRD climate finance, so to leverage really the sale of these credits with our own climate finance. And under Article 6.8, one idea we could think about is setting up a framework to support coal phase out, combined with more stringent climate commitments in the host country. So those are maybe some ideas that we can explore going further during this discussion or bilaterally. And just to finish off maybe another thought. I think it's also very important that, again, we think about how we can cooperate among development partners, MDBs, on this topic. So I think, for example, the Team Europe initiative on water, energy, climate in Central Asia could in fact be a very good element and a very good program that we could think about, combining this initiative with Article 6 cooperation. I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. You provided very interesting inputs, and I'm happy that we can make the connection with the Team Europe initiative, because now the floor passes again to Johannes Beckmanson, Head of Cooperation, European Union Delegation to Kazakhstan. Johannes, are you still there?
I am indeed here. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear and see you. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think I will divert a bit from my script, because I would like, now that we have Vincent and other representatives of international financial institutions here, and indeed EBRD perhaps in particular, I would like to emphasize the excellent cooperation we have with IFIs in providing what I would call sort of bottom-up support for the climate change agenda. So we have in Central Asia the so-called SME finance facility, through which we support access to finance and technical assistance for small and medium-sized enterprises. And I'm a great believer in this approach. We are not only reducing the CO2 footprint through the interventions, these small-scale interventions, we are also promoting job creation. And through the different programs, we are in fact addressing many very important objectives. That also includes digitalization, which was mentioned by one of the participants. So my main message is really, I think there's a lot for us to do, a lot of good we can do through a bottom-up approach, where we support businesses and in investing in energy efficiency, in more environmentally friendly production methods, and really promoting the development of a green economy that way. Of course, all the top-down initiatives, starting with the Paris Agreement, are also important. But if you want to really change the mentality and the way economic actors operate, it's very important to have that. I will repeat again, that bottom-up thinking with you. Now, in terms of what the European Union have done, well, I should mention that we have a successor program for the SME finance facility that the EBRD is implementing, which is called the Private Sector Sustainable Private Sector Program, SPSP. We have just signed the agreement with EBRD on this, so we have, we are very hopeful that we can, even in an even more targeted way, address the climate change agenda through that program supporting SMEs. Now, in addition to this, and I will keep now talking about the regional level, we have a number of programs where we support kind of the top-down approach, in the sense that we support policy dialogue between the Central Asian governments and the European Union through regular meetings. We have a working group on environment and climate change. But within that context, we also make a link to discussions about concrete investments, and we are trying to support the development of a project pipeline that can address the priorities that we identify through our policy dialogue. So here again, there is a combination of top-down, bottom-up approach. And this, our policy dialogue is primarily supported through the WECU program that provides the so-called, what you could call sort of the infrastructure for the working group, but also technical know-how in tailor-made interventions in all 5 countries. And I can just mention that we will shortly have a workshop addressing the transport sector, urban transport sector, where we will discuss a number of very concrete projects that are relevant for the urban areas in Central Asia. Now, I will not go through the entire list of regional projects that we have, but I would like to emphasize one project for which we have just signed a contract. It's the Sustainable Energy Connectivity for Central Asia, Seca. This is a regional project, and it will be launched next month, and it will promote a more sustainable energy mix for Central Asia in line with EU best practices through provision of expertise from EU countries, well, basically exemplifying how we have promoted the agenda in the EU. This is very relevant in the context of, for instance, Kazakhstan's new environmental code, where the use of best available techniques have been introduced, which is an approach we use within the EU. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any, but otherwise I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johannes. We also have among the audience, we have Julia Baneres from the European Commission. And if we will have time, she will spend a few words about the ongoing Team Europe initiative. Now let me give the floor to Dana Yermolyanok from the GIZ. She's replacing Torsten Brezina, who had to go on a business trip last minute, so he apologizes for not being able to attend. Dana is from the Global Program Policy Advice for Climate Resilient Economic Development, responsible for implementation in Central Asia. The floor is yours, Dana, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Alessandra. Yeah, so this year we actually, German Development Cooperation celebrates 30th anniversary of working with Central Asian countries. And on behalf of GIZ, I would like to welcome the region's willingness to cooperate towards shifting to low carbon and climate resilient development. And as GIZ is not a financing institution, we focus our work on technical cooperation, including the implementation of Team Europe initiative, and we've heard that the details will be provided on this initiative later. And we know that decarbonization in Central Asia would require investments and participation of not only governments, but also private sector, and households will play a huge role. And our lessons learned from supporting decarbonization processes in Central Asia show that issues of just transition, investments, technology transfer, and climate risk communication should be in the focus of reaching consensus in the society for the Paris Agreement implementation, including development of carbon markets and financing mechanisms. And we'll be happy, of course, to support this process and our partners and provide the expert knowledge that we have in several GIZ projects that are currently running. We, for example, have a project which is focused on supporting Kazakhstan in achieving carbon neutrality. We also have an extensive work on climate economic modeling and support climate resilient economic development and green transition in Central Asia. And I would like to highlight that we built synergies also with IFIs that work in the region. For example, in Kazakhstan, in this low emission development strategy work, we do link this to the NDC processes, and we built synergies also and soft linking between the modeling, sectoral and macroeconomic modeling that we do. And currently we're working on elaborating a financing concept for reaching carbon neutrality. And I think these fields would be interesting for the cooperation in Central Asia, because this development of also communication capacities for our partners in the region is important, so that the governments could support this dialogue with the private sector and could bring in this very sensitive issues of, for example, the tariff increase or other financing concept, also carbon markets. And in light of this implementation of the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, I think this part of our work could be strengthened, and we as GIZ are open for cooperation, including for the preparation of the COP26 processes. And I also will be happy to share additional informational materials and also results of our work in different countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and also thank you very much for being on time and for sharing additional material, which is always useful in this kind of discussions. Also because this is the very first event on Article 6 in Central Asia. So we need to learn the most from each other. Let me now give the floor to the second intervention from ICAT, to Henning Wüster, the director of the Initiative for Climate Action Transparency. Henning, if you're here, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. Yes, I'm here. Well, not where you are, but I'm online. So I'm very happy to see so many familiar faces around the virtual table. Good afternoon, and pleased to talk to you about the opportunities that we can offer through the hub and that ICAT together with Carrick will create on transparency. I think it's important to understand that Article 6 opens a range of opportunities for Central Asian countries. It has the potential to create climate finance. It helps countries to improve or create infrastructure that they can use longer term, and it can help to create benefits that go well beyond the climate and cover several of the SDGs, for instance, improving energy security or some of the environmental benefits related to nature-based solutions that were referred to earlier on. But what is important is to understand that this requires choices. It requires policy choices, and they need to be based on sound assessment. An assessment of the potential greenhouse gas impacts in different sectors and how those relate to NDC baseline, NDC targets, NDC timelines, an estimation of costs and the overall, both the marginal cost, but also the overall cost of implementation, and analysis of policies to see how far emission reductions can actually be brought. Based on those assessments and that kind of analysis, policymakers can make choices, can select the sectors where they want to use cooperative approaches, can also select the right mechanism, whether it's Article 6.2 or Article 6.4 or Article 6.8. But what is then important is that the right infrastructure is put in place. That is very much includes the institutional infrastructure.
I lost Henning. Henning, we lost you.
Yes, okay.
Now you're back online.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had some technical issues here this morning. So let me just go back on the MRV framework that I highlighted. For tracking ITMOs, a national registry is required, which can be linked to the international registry. But then you need also to be able to account for corresponding adjustments linked to the accounting of NDC emissions. And then there are a range of reporting requirements, all closely integrated into the Paris Agreement Enhanced Transparency Framework. So there are many opportunities from Article 6, but they can only be reaped if countries get ready. And the Transparency Hub that ICAT together with Carrick is establishing is an opportunity for the Central Asian countries to get ready. You are now in a position to define the work plan and to include preparatory activities for Article 6 in the work plan of this hub, so that the hub can then support you through expert advice and resources in getting ready to have data in place for informed decision making, and secondly also to fulfill the accounting and reporting requirements under the UNFCCC. So we invite all the Central Asian countries to actively engage in this new hub and turn it into a tool that can support you in a way that both the potential of Article 6 for the climate, but also for national development and economic growth can be reaped. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Henning. Your intervention was very interesting, and I myself have a question for you, but I will contain myself to the next slot for question and answers. And now let me give the floor to another friend of our climate change talks in Central Asia, Guy Bonvin, the Swiss Special Envoy for Water in Central Asia, Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, Switzerland Ambassador. Guy, the floor is yours. 5 minutes, no more.
Thank you very much. Please show me the counting chronometer, please. So thank you very much, and I'm very pleased to be with you today. And I would like, first of all, to thank you very much, Carrick, for hosting this very important roundtable on these very highly relevant topics. Also, thank you for you, Alessandra, to use your professional and personal energy to mobilize our effort and to address this very important issue of the climate change today. So in my address today, I will, of course, put the flavor of my current function, water, as water ambassador, but also having a broad vision of the water sector and bring the word of my colleagues at the Federal Department of Environment in charge of the climate change issues. Of course, the biggest impact of climate change is visible on the water sector, especially affecting the triple security, water, energy, food security in the region, and of course impacting the economy of the region, because water is everywhere in the economy of the region. To be clear, no one can solve the problem alone, and it is very important to have a strong cooperation on that. So again, very important here, and I think it was mentioned also for the EBRD, public resource in developing countries and transition countries will not be enough to adequately address climate change and to implement the pledges under the Paris Agreement. Those pledges need, of course, to will increase. I mean, the cost of those pledges will increase, and the vast majority of this emission reduction will has to be covered by private private resources. And rule, of course, has to be defined, and this is how you see the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement to stimulate investment and mitigation activity for NDC. Switzerland, of course, is very pleased with this adoption of the rules of Article 6 in Glasgow, and especially the detailed guidelines on 6.2, 6.4, and 6.8. And we are looking forward to further development of this ambitious article. And of course, Switzerland was a very active player on that, and achieving the emission reduction abroad is part also of the Swiss legislation, and in that sense is an important source of benefit for partner countries. And at this stage, I would like to underline the fact that Switzerland signed 6 agreements with bilateral agreements and 6.2 with interesting partners, and namely Peru, Ghana, Senegal, Georgia, to agree on this reduction on a bilateral base and provide a robust, robust legal framework for emission target. Switzerland is also very much looking at the development of 6.4 centralized mechanism, which is supposed to take place in operation very soon, ideally 2024, and especially because it lowers the transition cost for this emission trading and exchange of certificate, and avoid also double accounting that was mentioned today. Switzerland, of course, in that regard, very much interested for high integrated emission reduction. But I would like to underline here, it is not OMDA funding. This is very important to underline that. Now, if I look a bit more in the, another point which is also I would like to mention, Switzerland is active through the economic cooperation pillar on supporting the UNDP facility for implementing Article 6 transfer readiness assistance. And this facility is, of course, there to facilitate the work with Switzerland, especially for countries interested to work with Pillar 6.2. So apparently we don't hear that much very well from my side. Now let's see Central Asia. In the last 50 seconds, Central Asia are the most intensive cooperation, carbonated economy, 4 times the EU. And I think here there are opportunities for scope in the irrigation sector to reduce the emission, with also reducing the pumping cost and different aspects. But in order to implement 6.8, I think it's important to note that the perceived advantage should be there by the investor. And this is very important. And last but not least, I would like to remind that Switzerland is granted in this 22-24 cooperation program will mobilize half of its resource for climate change, water and infrastructure. I think it's very important to know that we are speaking about 107 million of Swiss francs in this forward. So with that, thank you very much, and we are hoping also for further development. I would like to also advise Carrick to continue on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for introducing, mentioning to UNDP, because our next speaker is Laura Altinger, Head of Regional Nature, Climate and Energy Team, UNDP Bureau for Europe and Central Asia. And Laura, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Alessandra, and thank you very much to Carrick for the invitation. I'd like to zoom out a bit from this sort of Article 6 and look at the bigger opportunity. Now, I think carbon pricing has long been established as the least cost way to achieve emissions reductions. And as the emissions reductions targets in the NDCs become more ambitious and aligned with the overall Paris Agreement objective of limiting the global warming to 1.5 degrees, carbon pricing is going to become more and more important. In fact, it's arguably the most important policy instrument to achieve the net zero transition and the green economy, as I think 1 or 2 speakers have alluded to. Now, from the economics perspective, a high carbon price, a high initial price of carbon with a low growth rate of price increase may be optimal, although this may not be politically feasible. Now, emissions pricing may not be enough to decarbonize the economy, as it's ineffective if the economic actors respond weakly to the price signals. This could be because the prices are too low. They don't significantly change the production, investment, and consumption choices. But with high carbon prices, as we're increasingly seeing in the EU, a mechanism to deal with carbon leakage and designing appropriate carbon border adjustment mechanisms has become essential. And that's exactly what we're seeing now in the EU. This is happening through the European Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which in mid-2021 was presented as a legislative proposal as part of the EU Green Deal. Now, this measure is to ensure that the imported goods pay a price for their carbon emissions that's comparable to the price paid by the EU domestic producers under the EU ETS. Initially, the carbon border adjustment mechanism will only apply to cement, fertilizers, iron and steel, aluminium and electricity, but the scope could very quickly be widened. The CBAM is expected to enter into force as early as 2023 and to fully apply from 2026. At which point importers will be obliged to purchase the CBAM certificates corresponding to the embedded emissions in their imported goods. CBAM certificates can be reduced to account for carbon prices already paid in the country of origin, but this needs to be certified. So I think the CBAM is clearly providing another incentive for countries in our region here and the trading partners of the EU to ready themselves for the domestic carbon pricing agenda, either in the form of a carbon tax or an emissions trading system. And so we're seeing this now very much through our country offices. There's a lot of interest now, especially in how this CBAM is going to affect first the trading and so on, but above all, what can be done. And many countries have already concluded that carbon pricing is in fact what they want as their sort of key response to this. So this is, we're already seeing this kind of readiness taking shape. Now I want to turn to what UNDP is doing specifically to promote this carbon pricing agenda. As already we heard from our Swiss representative, SDC, we have an Article 6 transfer readiness assistance project. And this is actually supporting countries from, in a way, cradle to grave, from the very beginning of thinking about these ITMOs under Article 6 to actually issuing them and registering them and so on. So it spans the whole process, basically. And through this project, for example, we used the World Map assessment tool, which is an integral part of the project to identify the support needs. We've also developed an ITMO manual to provide clear guidance, approach, procedures and steps to operationalize the institutional arrangements to prepare governments for the implementation of Article 6. Secondly, we have a global program, the CBIT, on the MRV and the Enhanced Transparency Framework. This helps the countries to set up and manage the GHG emissions inventories, even at local level. And this is, of course, also a cornerstone of the carbon agenda, the carbon pricing agenda. Third, we work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that we don't have much time left, but I would like to engage Laura and UNDP in the next question and answers to provide more in-depth information about their Article 6 readiness. Apologies for having to interrupt you, but as you have seen, we have a very tough schedule. And now we give the floor to the World Bank. To Daniel Beasley, a senior climate change specialist. Daniel,
Thank you very much. I assume you can hear me. So at the World Bank, we have long supported international trade of emissions reductions as a way of helping to reduce the costs of achieving targets by allowing abatement to occur where it's cheapest. By lowering costs, this supports countries to take more ambitious climate action. Trade is also a means to attract climate finance and facilitate finance flows, particularly from developed to developing countries. For countries with strong targets or net zero targets, they are more likely to be buyers of offsets rather than sellers. For countries like Kazakhstan, for example, where the land sector is unlikely to be a large net sink, despite the sequestration potential in grasslands and forests, because of the growth expected in the agriculture sectors, the international trade represents a real opportunity to avoid the cost of the most expensive abatement in the industrial and transport sectors. And that saving can be huge, depending on the availability, of course, of international offsets in the future. For these benefits to accrue, the framework for international trade needs to be robust. It needs to have integrity. We saw in Glasgow some real progress on Article 6, starting to pave the way for how international transactions can occur. Obviously, such transactions under the Paris Agreement are still in their infancy. There's a long way to go. However, as rules develop and trade becomes more of a possibility, there are some important elements for governments to consider if they're thinking about engaging in international trade. If a country is thinking to sell, for example, which abatement should it sell and which abatement should it keep? If they want to keep the cheap abatement, or do they want to and sell them more expensive if there's a market for it? With demand developing under such things as the voluntary market and possibly CORSIA, the aviation market for offsets, governments will want to ensure they know what abatement is leaving the country, as this may be needed to achieve NDCs, and because the government may be required to make up any emissions reductions that are sold. If governments are buyers, or if a country is buyers of abatement, how is the emissions reductions paid for? Do you integrate it with a compliance mechanism such as an emissions trading scheme or a carbon tax and make international offsets eligible for surrender? This would take government out of the transaction, and its role would be to set the boundaries around what is eligible. This would first require that the process for international transactions is well developed to keep transaction costs manageable, and so each firm doesn't have to negotiate the process for corresponding adjustments and the like. If international offsets are integrated with a carbon pricing system, should there be limits on the volume that can be used? There are strong arguments for such limits, including guards against integrity issues associated with crediting and against international offsets prices driving domestic carbon prices. We saw this issue under the CDM, and many countries adopt quantitative limits. Regardless of whether a buyer or seller, how to address double counting and corresponding adjustments. This is a topic that's been well covered, and I won't go into it. But if governments are serious about wanting to trade emissions reductions, there are implications for defining NDCs. Moving to an economy-wide emissions reduction target is important, and consideration of the benefits to trade of moving to a carbon budget approach, having a target in each year over the time period of the NDC. So it's clear what corresponding adjustments are being applied to in any given year. So these are just some of the considerations amongst many for countries to think about international trade, and the World Bank and other organizations represented here stand ready to support countries in working through these issues. The World Bank has a host of programs and has been working in the region for many, many years on carbon markets, and I won't go through them all, but we're very ready to help countries prepare for possible use of Article 6 mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and also for keeping the time. Now I would like to give the floor to a speaker who was not listed in the roundtable, to the European Commission, just for 2 minutes. Julia Baneres, if you are online, you have 2 minutes to complete the information about the Team Europe initiative, and then we will move forward with the agenda.
Yes, many thanks, Alessandra, for giving me this opportunity. I would keep it short because Johannes has already mentioned it, and as it is still a project under development, but I'm glad to share the information we have at this point. So this Team Europe initiative on Central Asia, water, energy, and climate change aims first at reinforcing the action by the EU and its member states and the European financial institutions on these 3 sectors by developing complementarities, sharing perspectives, and avoiding redundancies in our actions in this area. With this, Team Europe aims at contributing to make the ongoing transitions in the region sustainable, while building on the principles set forward by the European Consensus on Development, the EU Strategy on Central Asia, and finally, the Global Gateway announced last year. In order to address these interlinked water, energy, climate change challenges, we would like to first look at improving the regional integrated water energy resources management through an indicative set of actions, but at the same time, we believe it's very important to increase and improve the coordination in investment for a green transition from our perspective. For now, this TI incorporates the efforts by the European Union, including the EIB, the the EBRD, and then for member states right now, this initiative is being joined by France, Germany, Latvia, and Romania, while we also have some other member states as observers. And for member states, I would like to say that it's still possible that some of them may join later on, but it's still to be seen. Right now, this Team Europe initiative is entering the final stages of its mapping. So it's still at an initial stage, but we are already seeing very interesting conclusions as to possible indicative actions, and we're looking forward to present the results to you when we have a more final version. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Julia, for being very short, and I apologize because the timers that appeared on the screen were totally misleading. So now we should give the floor to the to Central Asian countries delegates. Before doing that, for the sake of saving time, I would like to read some of the questions that already were presented in the chat, so that speakers can prepare and answer very quickly. From Daniela Carrington, I think would you please explain, I think it's directed to Luis, would you please explain if the SDM project could be within the scope of the NDC? And if yes, what are the prerequisites and consequences? I assume that Daniela, who is an expert on Article 6, already knows the answer, but thank you very much for raising this question, because it will add more information to the audience. Then I have other questions. One question to ICAT from myself. Selecting sectors for Article 6 activities, how ICAT toolbox can support countries to select the sectors. To Vincent, EBRD, Article 6 cooperative approaches and the regional approach to the Green Cities project. Would it be possible to Central Asia? Another question to Guy Bonvan. Guy mentioned that Switzerland has already signed several bilateral agreements under the 6.2 article 6.2, and are you already planning to sign agreements with Central Asian countries? Is there a possibility? And for ADB, you mentioned this Article 6 support facility. Could you elaborate more about the possibility of using this facility also in Central Asia through Carrick or whatever other implementation agency you would like to use, if it is possible? Now, please, the relevant speakers take note of these questions. There might be other questions that I will read later on. Now let me give the floor to Kazakhstan. Ayman Yesekina, Director of the Greenhouse Gas Inventory Department, JSC Jasil Damu. Ayman, the floor is yours. Are you there? You have 7 minutes.
Добрый день. Я могу начинать, да? Добрый день, уважаемые участники круглого стола. Я представляю АО «Жасылдаму». Акционерное общество «Жасылдаму» является одним из основных органов разработчиков, которые оказывают экспертную поддержку в реализации государственной низкоуглеродной политики Министерства экологии, геологии и природных ресурсов и операторов системы торговли углеродных единиц. Следующий слайд можно? Или я так буду рассказывать, да? Ну, как вы знаете, Казахстан является участником международных соглашений в области изменения климата с 1995 года. И в рамках Парижского соглашения Казахстан дал обязательство снизить свои выбросы на 15% к 2030 году по сравнению с уровнем 1990 года и также достичь углеродной нейтральности к 2060 году. Оказываемых усилий их недостаточно, так как, согласно итогам государственной инвентаризации за 2019 год, по сравнению с 1990 годом наблюдается снижение всего лишь на 2,4%. Вы знаете, наверное, что в Казахстане реализовывается система торговли выбросами парниковых газов, основой которой является национальный план углеродных квот. Можно показать 5-й слайд, потому что я уже туда перешла. Следующий слайд, еще следующий слайд. Вот, да. Как вы знаете, с момента реализации системы торговли углеродными единицами реализовано уже 3 национальных плана на сегодняшний день. Действует национальный план углеродных квот на 2021 год. Он регулирует 43% всех выбросов парниковых газов Казахстана. Туда входят 29 крупных промышленных предприятий, 218 эксплуатируемых установок в электроэнергетической, нефтегазовой, горнодобывающей, металлургической, химической и обрабатывающей промышленности. Распределение квот производится и основано на основе бенчмарков, это удельные коэффициенты выбросов парниковых газов, которые утверждены соответствующим приказом министра экологии, геологии и природных ресурсов в этом году в рамках реализации экологического кодекса. Следующий слайд можно? Будучи стороной Парижского соглашения и приняв международные обязательства, появилась острая необходимость в создании институциональной законодательной базы для стимулирования и привлечения инвестиций, направленных на сокращение выбросов парниковых газов. Мы пересмотрели наше национальное законодательство и приняли и разработали новый экологический кодекс, который начал действовать с начала 2021 года, и в части регулирования выбросов и поглощения парниковых газов он вступил в силу с 1 июля 2021 года. Основные нововведения по сравнению со старым экологическим кодексом были закреплены международные обязательства в рамках определяемых на национальном уровне вкладов. Также был определен законодательно единый оператор системы торговли углеродных единиц, который сопровождает и оказывает экспертную поддержку полномочному органу. Предприятия, которые сдают отчетность для внутренней системы торговли выбросами, они полностью переходят на электронную отчетность. Также прописаны положения основные по торговле углеродными единицами. И в рамках нового экологического кодекса разработаны методологии по расчету выбросов парниковых газов, которые предполагают использование собственных данных предприятий и переход на уровень 3 по расчету выбросов парниковых газов. На сегодняшний момент уже утверждены в рамках экологического кодекса утверждены нормативно-правовые акты, их 8. Они касаются информационной системы, это государственный углеродный кадастр и реестр углеродных единиц, посредством которого все предприятия перешли на электронную отчетность и осуществляется внутренняя система торговли выбросами парниковыми газами. Также существуют отдельные правила торговли углеродными единицами, правила по реализации одобрения углеродных офсетов и также правила, которые регламентируют процессы валидации и верификации парниковых газов и методики расчета выбросов парниковых газов, о которых я говорила. В ожидании утверждения
presenting the point of view of Kazakhstan on Article 6. Is it right? Maybe Ainur Korbayeva, you can give us the point of view of Kazakhstan for what concerns Article 6. So if Mrs. Korbayeva is not available, apologies, but I just received a message from the organizers that I had to give the floor to her. So go ahead and please try to concentrate on the topic of this event, which is opportunities for cooperation activities under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much.
По госполитике я продолжу, да. В ожидании утверждения это правила государственного регулирования, это основные правила и углеродный бюджет, который фиксирует ставку сокращения для выполнения международных обязательств. Также помимо этого в целях стимулирования внедрения зеленых технологий в Казахстане и обеспечения эффективного функционирования финансовой поддержки в новом экологическом кодексе предусматривается внедрение зеленой таксономии для экологической оценки зеленых проектов. Механизмы государственной поддержки будут распространяться на проекты, которые предусмотрены в зеленой таксономии и которые направлены на повышение эффективности использования существующих природных ресурсов. Можно следующий слайд? Как раз следующий слайд по международным проектам. Это информация по реализованным международным проектам. В частности, того же Содому реализовывал являлся участником, по крайней мере, при реализации 3 международных проектов по Всемирному банку, которые способствовали обновлению АНУФ и при разработке дорожной карты выполнения АНУФ после 2020 года в партнерстве с Эрнст & Янг. Проект GIZ – это поддержка зеленой экономики в Казахстане и Центральной Азии для низкоуглеродного экономического развития. И проект Всемирного банка – это по разработке 4-го национального плана на период после 2020 года. По международному сотрудничеству я также хотела отметить особую роль регионального экологического центра. Он является единственной площадкой по странам Центральной Азии, и всех участников и стран призываю к содействию и к возможному сотрудничеству на данной площадке. Позвольте вас поблагодарить за уделенное внимание.
Thank you very much, and apologies for the inconvenience. I received a message that someone else had to step in, but apparently there was a connection problem. So now the floor to Kyrgyzstan, Dastan Abduldayev, Director of the Climate Finance Center of the Ministry of Natural Resources, Ecology and Technical Supervision of the Kyrgyz Republic. I pray the speakers in this roundtable to stick to the topic of this very event, so Article 6 cooperation opportunities. But I know that Dastan is ready to refer us about this as usual. Thank you.
Большое спасибо, коллеги. В первую очередь хотел бы выразить огромную благодарность за такую информативную конференцию, организованную со стороны РЭЦа и других партнеров по развитию. Вместе с тем, хочу быстро отметить, что на сегодняшний день Кыргызская республика тоже проводит определенную работу. Правда, на начальном этапе. В первую очередь хотелось бы отметить, что уважаемым президентом Кыргызской республики Садыром Нурмаджевичем этот год у нас в Кыргызстане объявлен годом по защите горных экосистем и климатической устойчивости. В настоящее время наше министерство, как уполномоченное министерство и уполномоченный госорган по вопросам экологии и изменения климата, в настоящее время активно прорабатывает дорожную карту по реализации данного указа. И в рамках данной дорожной карты одним из пунктов мы рассматриваем вопрос проработки карбоновых рынков, да, и это как раз-таки очень своевременно и очень схоже с сегодняшним мероприятием. Также у нас на прошлой неделе состоялась коллегия Министерства природных ресурсов, экологии и технического надзора, где по итогам коллегии в решении было упомянуто о том, что Кыргызская республика намеревается изучить вопрос о вхождении в карбоновые рынки, а также вот вопрос, связанный с статьей 6. Таким образом, исходя из вышеупомянутых документов и процессов, также, конечно, как было отмечено с другими коллегами из центральноазиатских стран, Кыргызстан тоже активно участвовал в последней КОП-26, где мы презентовали обновленный ОНУФ, где в рамках ОНУФа предусматриваются определенные амбиции Кыргызстана, где было уже отмечено, и могу заверить, что со стороны уполномоченного госоргана, также кабинетов министров в целом государства, вопрос изменения климата является очень актуальным. И также уважаемый президент во время выступления в КОП-26 объявил о том, что Кыргызская республика намеревается достичь углеродной нейтральности к 50 году. Таким образом, в рамках данных всех вышеупомянутых документов стратегии Кыргызстан тоже открыт для конструктивного диалога, да, в рамках работы статьи 6 Парижского соглашения. Также, учитывая национальные интересы и региональные интересы каждой из наших стран, мы, в принципе, как страна готовы к сотрудничеству и делить своим опытом. Также ожидаем изучить опыты других, не только центральноазиатских, но и других стран, и также готовы работать с нашими партнерами по развитию, представители которых выступали ранее, и это ADB, ЭБРР, и Всемирный банк, и другие наши партнеры по развитию. Таким образом, хочу в конце выразить большую благодарность организаторам, также выразить готовность со стороны Кыргызстана быть активным членом данного процесса и на основании национальных интересов, также текущей национальной политики мы готовы сотрудничать в рамках данного направления и будем в дальнейшем сотрудничать совместно с нашими и партнерами по развитию, и с РЭЦей. Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much for also being on time and to have focused on your readiness and willingness to take advantage of Article 6 opportunities. Let me give the floor to Tajikistan. There should be Mr. Shodmon Muzaffarov, Deputy Director of the Water Resources Management Project in the Panj River. So, Shodmon, can you tell us about the readiness of your country to undertake Article 6 projects? I pray Carrick is here.
Здравствуйте, коллеги, меня видно? Hello. Здравствуйте, коллеги. Меня зовут Зафар Шурмунов. Я буду говорить от имени Комитета по охране окружающей среды и национального координатора ЭКИКОН Республики Таджикистан. Спасибо за приглашение на данную встречу и спасибо за организаторам за содействие в данной встрече. Хотел бы вам также представить краткую информацию, что делается на национальном уровне по вопросам прозрачности, то есть Enhanced Transparency Framework, то есть повышение прозрачности на национальном уровне. Сейчас на данный момент, исходя от национальной стратегии Республики Таджикистан до 2030 года, плюс среднесрочной программы развития до 2025 года, со стороны комитета и координатора ЭКИКОН в данный документ были включены, как бы сказать, рассмотрение вопросов мониторинга, верификации, отчетности. Данные мероприятия уже в данный документ включены, и мы уже как бы предпринимаем первые шаги совместно с международными партнерами по развитию, это АБР, Всемирный банк и другие. То есть сейчас мы на данный момент уже подали заявку в Глобальный экологический фонд по разработке проектного предложения по Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency, то есть как бы повышение потенциала по улучшению механизмов прозрачности в стране. Данный документ разрабатывается совместно с ФАО, совместно с комитетом и агентством по гидрометеорологии. Надеемся, что в этом году мы как бы получим одобрение на реализацию проекта уже и начнем уже как бы реализовывать данные компоненты. Также по статье 6 будут рассматриваться вопросы, уже ведутся переговоры по разработке, как бы сказать, стратегического документа по направлению зеленой экономики. То есть координирующий орган – это Министерство экономики и развития Республики Таджикистан совместно с Азиатским банком по развитию. Они уже рассматривают данный вопрос. Со стороны Всемирного банка также ведутся работы, как бы сказать, по повышению прозрачности, то есть внедрение некоторых, как бы сказать, рамок и механизмов, задач в рамках Парижского соглашения. Это значит мониторинг NDC, это оценка воздействия мер по смягчению, то есть инвестиционные проекты, какое воздействие на сокращение они имеют, какое воздействие на адаптацию. Ну, как бы сказать, некоторые компоненты рассматриваются донорами, то есть компоненты MRV и TF. В будущем надеемся, что в NDC у нас указано пошаговый, поэтапно переход на рамки прозрачности, то, что на национальном уровне уже при поддержке правительства уже будет реализовываться. Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Shadman, and also for referring about your work for a strategic document on green economy. We have seen at the beginning how important it is to concentrate on those sectors of the economy which are much greenhouse gas emitters. So now the floor to another friend from Turkmenistan, Nazar Alaberdiev, expert, head of the Department of Scientific and Technical Problems and International Cooperation, Interstate Commission for Sustainable Development, International Fund for Saving the RLC. Nazar, are you there? So can you tell us about Turkmenistan interest in Article 6 opportunities? The floor is yours.
Да, добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Спасибо большое, Александра. Я надеюсь, я в ваш таймер смогу уложиться. Меня зовут Назар Алабердиев. Я являюсь экспертом из Туркменистана по изменению климата.
Nazar, we can't hear you. Are you there?
Да, да. Алло. Извините,
Yes.
пожалуйста,
Yes.
это проблемы со связью. Ну, для начала я хочу поблагодарить за возможность участия на данном мероприятии. Вся информация была очень полезна. Я, в свою очередь, коротко хотел бы рассказать про основные действия по выполнению РКИК ООН в Туркменистане. Ну, например, такие как Туркменистан ратифицировал РКИК ООН в 1995 году. С тех пор были подготовлены 3 национальных сообщения. В 2012 году президент Туркменистана подписал постановление об утверждении национальной стратегии Туркменистана по изменению климата. В 2020 году началось выполнение 4-го национального сообщения и 1-го двухгодичного доклада. На данный момент ведется подготовка УНУФ 2-го. Он сейчас находится на стадии утверждения правительством. Также Туркменистан подписал Парижское соглашение в 2016 году и ратифицировал его в октябре 2016 года. Туркменистан обновил свою национальную стратегию об изменении климата в 2019 году. С учетом обострения проблем изменения климата и взятых на себя обязательств по Парижскому соглашению. Данная стратегия об изменении климата Туркменистана предусматривает много важных мер по реализации Парижского соглашения в Туркменистане. Ну, например, такие как разработка национальной системы инвентаризации по выбросам и стокам парниковых газов, принятие нового закона Туркменистана об энергосбережении и энергоэффективности, разработка и внедрение системы измерения, отчетности и верификации для определяемых на национальном уровне вкладов, создание фонда климатических данных Туркменистана, ну и подготовка 5-го национального сообщения Туркменистана по РКИК ООН, а также разработка национального плана по митигации. Вот. В заключение это было коротко о том, что в Туркменистане было сделано и собирается проводиться. А в заключение хочу немного рассказать о статье 6 Парижского соглашения. Одной из целей которой является повышенные амбиции. В настоящее время многие страны уже подготовили свои УНУФ или еще готовят их. Наша страна входит в последнюю группу, как я уже об этом сказал. В данное время УНУФ рассматривается, и я думаю, будет уже в первой половине года принято в Туркмении. Мы видим, насколько сложна эта работа, повышение амбиций. Ведь это зависит не только от внутренних условий страны и от желаний, но и в значительной степени от не до конца раскрытых, установленных условий международного сотрудничества в области изменения климата. Здесь следует отметить, что в соответствии с Парижским соглашением идея повышенных амбиций не ограничивается исключительно сокращением выбросов парниковых газов. Она также, по нашему мнению, включает меры по адаптации к изменению климата, которые во многом схожи с мерами устойчивого развития. И поэтому еще одной целью статьи 6 Парижского соглашения является поддержка устойчивого развития. Это означает, что сотрудничество, устанавливаемое в рамках статьи, должно поддерживать устойчивое развитие. Хотя основной упор сотрудничества делается на предотвращение выбросов парниковых газов, необходимо также решать другие вопросы. Вопросы устойчивого развития, связанные и с адаптацией к изменению климата в том числе. Учитывая, что все страны приняли цели устойчивого развития ООН, где цель 13 посвящена вопросам изменения климата, налицо важность и актуальность статьи 6 Парижского соглашения. Еще одной целью, которой является обеспечение экологической целостности, означающее совместные механизмы по статье 6. Они должны также гарантировать экологическую целостность процесса сотрудничества. Это означает, что механизмы сотрудничества не могут привести к уменьшению уже прилагаемых усилий стран в борьбе с изменением климата. Для решения этих вопросов статья 6 Парижского соглашения по климату определяет 3 механизма, стимулирующих сокращение выбросов парниковых газов. Это торговля результатами сокращения выбросов, реализация климатических проектов и так называемые нерыночные подходы. Таким образом, статья 6 – это новый механизм устойчивого развития, в частности, предполагающий широкое развитие международных проектов по снижению выбросов парниковых газов. Речь может идти о конкретных проектах, обмена данных и привлечении инвестиций. В данном случае встает серьезный вопрос о транспарентности. Мы считаем, что статья 6 очень важна, но для ее выполнения от развивающихся стран потребуется много усилий и дополнительных знаний. И я думаю, что, учитывая вышесказанное, чтобы достичь цели 6 статьи для развивающихся стран, процесс этот будет непростым. Для этого будет необходимо развивать сотрудничество, которого призывает эта статья. Поэтому мы предлагаем авторитетным международным организациям взять на себя ведущую роль и оказать соответствующую помощь развивающимся странам в процессе выполнения 6 статьи Парижского соглашения. Вот. Наверное, все на этом. Спасибо за внимание. Я коротко постарался, если я успел, Александра.
Thank you very much, Nazar. Yes, Nazar, you were fearing my intervention. So thank you very much for closing up on time, and thank you very much for your intervention on behalf of Turkmenistan. And now the floor to the last Central countries in alphabetical order. Uzbekistan, Natalia Agaltsieva, head of the Department for Preparation and Monitoring of Projects of Uzhydromet, another friend of our meetings in Central Asia. Natalia, the floor is yours. I can't see you, but I hope you're here.
Добрый день, дорогие участники. К сожалению, Наталья Александровна временно не может присутствовать на этом совещании, на этом мероприятии, поэтому разрешите представиться. Меня зовут Гавриленко Надежда, я ведущий специалист группы климата Узгидромета, и представлю краткую информацию о том, что делает Узбекистан сегодня в части касающихся выполнения обязательств по Парижскому соглашению. Мы тоже принимали активное участие на конференции сторон в Глазго и представили свои обновленные обязательства. Это сокращение выбросов парниковых газов на 30% от ВВП к 2030 году. Широко это освещали, и следующим таким крупным событием мы считаем это подготовка стратегии по изменению климата до 2030 года. Мы неоднократно ее представляли. Это проект, это планы, какие мероприятия необходимо реализовать, да, наши амбиции, индикаторы и механизмы по адаптации и смягчению последствий изменения климата. В настоящее время эта стратегия находится на рассмотрении руководства страны. Мы надеемся, что в ближайшее время она будет подписана. И я бы хотела отметить также, что помимо того, что готовится вот такой документ, уже вышел ряд документов, тоже стратегических. Например, это стратегия по обеспечению электроэнергии на 10 лет, это стратегия по развитию Узбекистана до 2030 года. И в этих документах также отражены механизмы по снижению и минимизации последствий изменения климата, снижению выбросов парниковых газов. Большая роль в этих документах отводится внедрению энергосберегающих технологий, внедрению альтернативных источников энергии, это ветровая энергетика, это солнечная энергетика, развитие малых гидроэлектростанций и ряд, значит, отраслевых программ. Конечно, здесь большая роль уделяется и системам раннего предупреждения, да, вот таких опасных климатозависимых явлений, поэтому все это предусмотрено, в ближайшее время начнется реализация всех этих мероприятий, и в настоящее время ведется подготовка 4-го национального сообщения, которым также в ходе реализации которой, значит, проводится инвентаризация парниковых газов. Кроме того, я бы хотела отметить, что уже начата подготовка при поддержке ПРООН национального адаптационного плана. Там определены 5 секторов экономики. Это водные ресурсы, сельское хозяйство, строительство, это риски стихийных бедствий, здравоохранение, а также наиболее уязвимые регионы, это регион Приоралья. Здесь также предусматривается разработка основных ключевых адаптационных мер по минимизации последствий изменения климата. Ну, может быть, я не все сейчас осветила, но на самом деле все стратегические документы, которые принимаются в республике, они, во многих из них, практически во всех, отражаются вопросы изменения климата и экологического состояния и как бы обеспечение такой благоприятной среды для населения, для развития экономики и минимизации последствий, да, каких-то негативных. Спасибо большое всем за приглашение, за участие в данном мероприятии. И хотела бы отметить, что Узгидромет и вообще республика в целом поддерживает все мероприятия, программы, связанные с изменением климата, и готова к действиям активным и реализации совместных программ. Спасибо.
Thank you very much to Untitled for being on time and also for making reference to the recent strategic documents, namely those addressing energy supply and energy efficiency and new energy efficient technologies for Uzbekistan, which might also be translated into concrete ideas for Article 6 cooperation. Before giving the floor to Azamat Tashev from Carrick for his presentation on Central Asia preparation for COP27, I have received an additional question to Laura Altinger from UNDP. If you could elaborate more on your Article 6 readiness program, if this is being implemented for all 5 Central Asian countries individually or regionally. So after the presentation from Azamat, maybe you will have the opportunity to answer this question, or even in writing, like Guy Bonvin from Switzerland did to reply to the request about Article 6.2 in Central Asia. Now I leave the floor to Azamat Tashev from Carrick. We heard about the successful participation in COP26 we share with you the article that appeared today on IISD newsletter, talking about this adventure at COP26 in Glasgow. And what's up for COP27, Azamat?
So thank you, Alessandra. Good afternoon, colleagues. So technically, I will briefly share our experience with organizing the first Central Asian Pavilion at the Glasgow, at the Conference of Parties, and also ongoing preparations for COP27. But before I do this, can you confirm that you can hear me well and see my slide?
Yes, I can hear you well, and I would really appreciate if you could wrap up before the initially foreseen 10 minutes, because we're running out.
Thank you. So I'm moving on. Now, few reasons why we need to participate at the Conference of Parties, and technically just to touch some of them. The preparatory process, as well as participation at the COP, it allows for the neighbors, and that's important because it allows to understand the transboundary issues, national perspectives, plus avoid duplication in different initiatives that are organized by different partners in the region. So another thing is that COP allows you to advocate for your own interest and voice your position in the debates, in the negotiations at the COP. Besides, the preparatory process can be regarded as a good opportunity to build capacity of the national delegations on different skills and knowledge that is required, to effectively participate at the COP, at the Conference of Parties. But it also is a good opportunity to start creating and building a coherent regional negotiation team, so that they effectively advocate for the regional and national interests at different venues at the COP. So that's enough for the reasons. And there might be another question: why do we need a separate pavilion of the region at the COP? So technically, there are multiple reasons that are highlighted on my screen, but to touch a few of them, it allows you to minimize the costs. When we do the whole job of logistics, organizing the pavilion, it requires a lot of preparations, resource investments. We do all this job for you, and all you have to do is just be in touch with us and take advantage of this opportunity. Another thing is it allows you to improve visibility of your actions, initiatives, programs, or projects, whether you are a government agency or development agency or business. That's a good place where you can share your results, your experience, and be heard and be seen. Besides, from our experience with the first COP, we see that there are a lot of barriers for organizing separate side events, a lot of competition for attention, and by doing better, by doing coordinated promotion, PR activities, we'll make sure that your side event is included in a convenient way for you, and also it's good for optimization of logistics. And I'm not going to go into details for the other reasons, but technically, the pavilion is a good place to start building a network, and we encourage you to take advantage of it. And for example, take a look at what Africa is doing. They've been doing a fascinating job by presenting themselves as a one single region, and they achieved a lot by that. They are seen on the international agenda. Many parties are talking about them, about their needs, about their challenges, and they are succeeding to bring money into the region. This is something that we need to think about, and that cannot be done if we just approach the Conference of Parties on our own. So what about the results? So first thing, the Central Asian Pavilion in Glasgow at COP26 was organized by demand from the national partners, focal points on UNFCCC. And that was done with a short notice, and we still succeeded to mobilize over almost $250,000 thanks to partners listed on the screen. We attracted over 2,000 participants, helped to organize, hosted over 60 events and meetings, which were attended by different stakeholders, including high-level officials from the ministries, including the president of the Kyrgyz Republic. You can see him on the screen. One thing that needs to be noted when we were preparing and announcing the regional statements from the governments of Central Asia plus civil society, there was one common message. We need to start cooperating because climate change is a transboundary issue. It's a cross-cutting issue, and no single party can do it alone. And there was a unanimous message to the international community that the region is willing to cooperate both with the outside world and also among the actors within the region. So, and one of the things also to note about the COP26 is that multiple agreements were signed during that at our pavilion facilities. One of them is creation of the Climate Action Transparency Hub for Central Asia. Now, moving on to preparations for COP27. It's an ongoing process. We already allocated some budget, and we are also working with the partners to mobilize additional funds. So if you are interested to join us and support this process, please feel free to reach us out. Right now, we are at the preliminary consultation stage. We are checking interest of the governments to participate at the COP27 at the Central Asian Pavilion. Besides, we are initiating capacity gaps and needs assessments to understand the capacity building needs of the delegations, observers, and young professionals in the region. Then we are planning to move. Will be organized sometime in April. More details to be provided soon. Technically, at these roundtables, this is an open process. You are feel free to join us, both to contribute to the program development for the COP27. If you have interest to organize side event or provide some presentations, please join us. We are also open, to talk about different partnership arrangements for that pavilion at the COP27. We will present our roadmap, tentative budget. Once we clear with the action plan, we will move on and jointly implement it with the partners. Based on the capacity needs assessment, we will conduct several online trainings to build the capacity of national delegations and other interested partners. We will help to establish and support the preparatory work of the regional negotiation group. We will develop and then also help, confirm and approve regional statements from the Central Asian governments and NGOs. Once we will, reach the COP27 in November this year, we will make sure that the regional statements are included into the formal agenda for COP27. We will help to organize side events, thematic discussions, making sure that, this is a very inclusive process and all partners in the region are welcome to join us. We will provide full support for, regional negotiation process. We will back up the regional negotiation group. We will provide PR communication, IT, logistical support, and help, delegates and other visitors from the region to actively participate at different thematic sessions of the region. So technically, that's it. But before I finish, I wanted to mention that if you have any questions or, proposals, interest, I will share in a chat contacts of responsible staff members. So please feel free to follow up, reach us out. We will be happy to discuss any ideas or proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Azamat. Now we have not much time left for question and answers, but I would like to ask the speakers who already received direct questions to step in by answering the already addressed questions. We had also ADB and EBRD answering in writing. And I thank you very much for that. So maybe Luis, you would like to answer our colleague, an expert on Article 6, Daniela Carrington's question, and then maybe we have for ICAT Alieg, because Henning had to leave, and Laura Altinger for UNDP. So Luis, go ahead, very concise because we are running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you very much, Daniela, for the question. It's a fair question, and it deserves a long answer, but we don't have time. My view regarding this. Sorry, can you hear me now?
We do hear you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for that. Again, thank you very much for the question, Daniela. And well, it's a serious question, and it deserves a long answer. We don't have time. Anyway, my view is that it's difficult not to consider that a sustainable development project under 6.4 is not going to be related with the NDC. It is going to be related immediately when the first transfer of emission reductions is done, because then we have the corresponding adjustment, and we have as well the issue of the overall mitigation contribution, 2% of discount, and the share of profits 5% of discount. If we move that emission reduction through the Article 6.2 as a ritmo, the relationship with the NDC is going to be as well immediately. But in that moment, the consequence is that after the corresponding adjustment is going to be done at the same way, then there is not that levy of the 2% discount and the 5% levy on the transfer. So anyway, it is something that we have to run under the learning by doing process, as we have done with the CDM. And to finalize, it is very difficult that a sustainable development mechanism project is not going to be developed under the economical sector in the host country included in the NDC. It could happen, but it is very difficult. So in my view, most probably the Article 6.4 is going to be always related with the NDC from the very beginning, or lately when we have this contribution and this assessment.
Thank you very much, Luis, for your very concise answer. Maybe if there will be more additional reflections, so we can address them in writing. Now, Oleg, if you're here for ICAT to answer how ICAT can support the selection of the sectors for Article 6 activities.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandra. I think it's a very important question, because sector-based analysis is important for engaging in Article 6 activities for many reasons. One of them is because different sectors assume to contribute on a different scale to NDC implementation. On the other hand, they have different marginal abatement cost and so-called low-hanging fruits and high-hanging fruits. So it depends on the country's strategy whether they'd like to allow low-hanging fruits to be sold on the market, depends on the price. And for all these considerations in ICAT, we propose sectoral based assessment guides. These are the methodologies that are designed to assess the national policies in different sectors and to define the greenhouse gas-based impact that could be delivered by implementation of those policies. On top of that, we are also offering some modeling and data management tools developed by our technical partners. And those are more really like a modeling tools that could be used over the years by a country if it's selected to first of all to design what sector to be used for Article 6, and then to monitor the implementation of Article 6 activities. And as Henning said, that the work plan for the regional center is still in the design phase. So all this work could be included in the work plan. It all depends on countries and on their appetite for Article 6 activities for the center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we have here Vincent, maybe just a couple of words to answer what you already wrote in the chat, and then Laura. Go ahead.
Briefly then, Alessandra, thank you for the question on Article 6 in Green City. So as I wrote in the chat, there's probably two ways of looking at this. First of all, of course, as we know, Green City Action Plan is designed to set out environmental investments that can be financed in a city. And of course, if these are realized, they could be, the related emission reductions could be the basis of an Article 6 transaction. But as I said, I think these would have to be rather large projects to also account for the transaction costs, right? Another option, as I mentioned, of course, Article 6 income could be used to co-finance investment as part of the Green City Action Plan, so to come along with the EBRD investments in those sustainable investments in city infrastructure. So those would maybe be the two elements I could see.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for your concise answer. Now, Laura Altinger from UNDP. If you're here, you can answer about the Article 6 readiness program. If you're not here, we will move to the meeting conclusions. Okay, I don't see Laura stepping in. It was a very long day, and we have come to the end. I have to apologize with all the speakers for having been, as usual, so strict, as if I usually am when we are in present meetings. But for the sake of time, we couldn't do differently. I would like to thank first of all, Carrick for having organized this event. I would like to thank all the speakers who kindly accepted to testify what is currently being carried on in the region and what are the possible perspectives for additional cooperation opportunities in Central Asia. I'm very happy personally that we are holding this very first meeting on a hot topic all over the world. And as I personally believe that Central Asia is the center of the world for many aspects, and there are a lot of interesting opportunities for developing concrete actions that lead to a real sustainable development, not only the certification of greenhouse gas emission reductions, but also side effects for adaptation, and also contributing to the improvement of social and economic conditions of the populations in the region. Those activities that could be successfully implemented in Central Asia might well serve as an example, replicable elsewhere. As I have a technical background, I always say that Central Asia can be a very interesting laboratory where we can test new sustainable approaches, new technologies, new methodologies. What is important is to work together, because the key of success is Central Asia itself, because whenever we work with Central Asian partners, with Central Asian countries, it is always a mutual learning. It is not a matter of asking experts to come from Mars and land into countries where they can do whatever they want. No, what is very interesting in Central Asia is the added value provided by people and the knowledge that they bring, their technical, professional, and cultural background. And this is very important because this is the key for successful project activities. So I'm, as usual, very positive about the future of Central Asia. I will always be in the front line with Central Asian partners, colleagues, and friends, ultimately, because I strongly believe that we can together work well and achieve concrete outcomes. So my meeting conclusions are a message of hope and a message of a positive approach for the near future. Continue working together to try to take advantage of these new opportunities. We have to continue working together. No one can work alone. So let me now give the floor to Zafar Makmudo, Executive Director of Carrick. We are already 2 minutes behind schedule, but thank you very much, Zafar, for closing the meeting, and thanks again to Carrick for organizing this very important event.
Спасибо, Александра. Я знаю, у меня 1 минута, да, для завершения, для заключения. Спасибо за интересно проведенное мероприятие. Мы, конечно, стараемся работать, как нам рекомендуют, чтобы было как можно меньше воды в выступлениях. Но сегодняшний формат под вашим модерированием ставит не только новую планку, но еще и дает пищу для размышления. Дополнительно к теме мероприятия 6 статьи Парижского соглашения. Мы над этим всем будем работать. Спасибо вам, спасибо всем нашим участникам и до скорой встречи.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All the best, Stanya.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Dear colleagues, if you have any feedback or comments, please feel free to use the chat. We still will keep the Zoom open for 10 minutes to collect the feedback questions, and we will follow up duly if you leave your email address or contact address. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.